on the makeup. We got Mike from Rebel Reef on a part two here, and I just want to welcome him to the live stream. Mike, welcome, sir.
Hey, thanks.
Thank you for being here.
Sure thing.
So, what's
Looking
been
forward to it.
happening?
Had to do a couple. I'm sure you saw. I had to take out a big old Paletti yellow tip.
I
Finally
see
decided
you've
to
been
make the move on
bragging a
that.
lot too.
Yeah. So the usual. I got my AF4 set up.
Okay.
So that's cool. I'm I'm living in 3026. I just ask Alexa to feed the fish and she'll do it. Right.
Oh, wow. That's incredible.
Yeah.
Wow.
I'm still kind of getting, working out the kinks and stuff like that, but
No doubt,
yeah.
man.
Other than that, I've got a few new corals that came in, mostly for the softy tank upstairs. But
Okay.
it's going to be a while till they're out here. When I get new stuff, I put it in the frag tank and then just I sit on it for a while until I kind of decide
Quite
where I
smart.
want it and let it grow up a little bit. I mean, a little frag just gets lost in here, right? It'll get shaded and grown, so
For sure.
it's gotta grow out a little bit.
Did you thaw
Um,
out yet?
did I what?
Did you
Thaw
thaw
out.
out yet?
Oh, yeah. We do still have a little bit of snow in some corners, but it's been much warmer this past week. Yeah. But
That's
I mean,
good,
the
man.
tank didn't miss a beat. Tank's fine.
Yeah, I see it actually probably helped. You probably got a little bit more time with it because, the weather probably forced you indoors with the tank and
Yeah,
kind of forced the things that you probably don't want to get involved with. I guess that probably led you to the coral cutting
yeah. Doing
and all
some.
the frags that were produced during
Yeah,
that time frame.
yeah.
So
It's
yeah,
kind of, if you're not spending time outside, you're kind of forced to deal with the tank, right? And I ship corals too, so I had a couple
okay.
weeks worth of like backlogs. I'm still catching up on, just because I didn't want to ship any corals for a couple weeks there. But I think we're past the worst of it now. So
Yeah, let's hope so. I mean, I've got stuff going on in the food forest, but
yeah,
we'll
I
get
know
there with it eventually.
you were worried about you were going to lose some trees and stuff, right?
Yeah, you could if you follow any permaculture in Florida, you'll see it's all over, all the way from Southwest, all below West Palm Beach, which is really low, man. I mean, like that's really down, like near the bottom of Florida. So you're getting near Miami, and they were losing mangoes and all sorts of
Yeah.
stuff down there. So it's one of them things, man. Like the reef, man. It happens where we have these like crashes or mini crashes, or we lose a favorite coral or whatnot, and you just
It
you
clears
know
room for something new to come in.
it absolutely does, man. You just kind of have to keep that frame of mind, right?
Yeah.
So
Yep.
yeah. So I mean, kind of like to for anyone who might be out there that is watching or going to catch back up on this later. Our first time we got together, we really were like sort of focused on display, sort of background. I think right if I remember
Yeah, I mean, I think
correctly.
we kind of got into the background in philosophy and husbandry and kind of, my take on things. And once you kind of open that can of worms, I'm gonna just kind of rant about that for 2 hours, and then that's that, right? So
So there is no like wherever the conversation goes. I was saying originally as the last time, all we have to do is just refresh when that mark comes. So if we're just into it and we're going, we'll just keep going, and we might have to refresh at some point, but it's all good. Wherever it goes, it goes, and at this point. Really, what I would like to do is sort of like hand it to you and sort of let you just take us through whatever like things that were on your mind post interview last time that might have like we always look back and go, oh shoot, I wish I would have thought about that or
yeah.
this you
And
know
remind me if I start talking about something that we already talked about, just stop me, because I got people coming over and then I talk to other people, and so sometimes I can't remember if we
of
already
course.
had this conversation or if I had it with the guy who came and picked up corals from me last week. So
Right, I totally respect that, man, and
yeah,
and I'll do my best as well to try to remember because I got a couple years on you, so But yeah, anyway, leaving all that aside, at this point, anything that you want to bring forward and that you thought we missed or left out, and then at whatever point, dive in. I know last time you had mentioned something about you didn't feel like you were getting like the right kind of shots of the tank, maybe, or your phone wasn't charged, or there was something that was
Yeah,
going on.
I'm charging up here. I figured, we can start this way, but I'll flip the phone around and put the filter on and get some good get some good views. This is still solidly daytime lights for me. I mean, it looks a little blue here, but it does not look very blue to my eyes right now. It's I've got the T5s on, so it's under pretty white light. Which I think is fine. I choose corals that look good under white light because that's how I like to look at the tank, right? Um,
Mhm.
but I can tweak the lights a little bit, get a couple of different things going on, and then try to see what we can do to get a good look at it.
Well, it's
And I mean,
always
I
what
don't
looks
think we really
outstanding.
talked about my like support system too. I don't
Okay.
know if we did a whole lot of that, but
No, I don't think we got into the under
equipment,
the hood, you
right?
know, and I think that was something that, I even mentioned as in my notes here that, to get through under the hood, any of your, anything that, is sort of like core values to you or, like core philosophy or,
Yeah,
something that you bring with you that, it's just you're hardened into that you feel is kind of led you along the way, something, a principle or anything like
yeah,
that.
yeah.
Um, something like that. I think, maybe do a quick overview of the system, in case, anybody who might not have caught the first one is just catching back up, maybe just like flash through the system on things we talked about last time. Go ahead
Yep.
and blaze through that and then go ahead and jump in, man. Any of your system redundancy as well, how
Yeah.
you prepared for the storm, get into, the heart of the system, kind of what you're doing down in the sump, anything that you're doing that's unique that
Yep.
that's key centric to you,
Yep.
or something that you're working on, like testing. Because I know you're kind of like me, you like doing things and just like you
I'm
know,
careful with it though. I mean, that's something I will say is that it's hard that like I think, people like to tinker, people like to experiment, but like having a really nice acro tank is just like really not a great place to tinker and experiment. You know what I mean? Like I
right,
have to fight my urges to like try out XYZ. And, the more power to the people that just have fun with their hobby and play around with it. And then they don't really, what happens, happens. But my drive for like a little bit of perfectionism with my aquarium
sure,
overrides my drive to like tinker and experiment. And so, that's
yeah,
one of the things that I always look at is like, if I'm going to like try something new or make a change, like what are the how much better could this make things and how much worse could this make things? And, if you're already happy with the tank and operating at like a 95% level, most of the changes at this point that I make have a much better chance of making things worse than better. So
sure.
I'm just I'm just not really into making changes these days. I kind of
Oh
like
yeah,
after
totally
20
get it.
years I kind of stumbled into like my husbandry recipe, and I don't know. It's like when sometimes it's okay to like play around and change the recipe, but like sometimes if you got it, just leave it alone.
Yeah,
So,
no, I agree, man. Like, I've kind of landed on something a little bit different, but it's more basic than anything. But keeping all that in mind, that's not why we're here today. It's just kind of follow along with what's going on with your reef.
yeah.
So yeah, that's cool. I mean, I was thinking more from a context of, I think you kind of look at sort of nature, and ways of not I guess mimicry would be a good way of looking at it, maybe, and I think if you want to any recap on what you were doing with your surging and things of this nature, um, by all means get back into it. But
Yeah.
I would like for you to just whatever you feel like you want to jump into at this point, catch us all up. I know that you got the one absolutely gorgeous display. What is it? If you want to just go over the dimensions real quick again,
Yep.
and
Alexa, turn off the parlor. See if I can get rid of some of this glare. There we
oh,
go.
that's crazy.
So, So this is a standard 180, right? Back when tanks had standard sizes. Now I guess they're all over the place. But 6 foot by 2 foot by 2 foot.
Mhm.
It's built-in wall, cabinetry on this side, and then over on the other side, it's kind of flush in the wall.
Okay.
Um, in terms of under the hood, there's not much here because what this does is it goes down into the wall, down into the crawl space, and out to the garage.
Okay.
So I've got 4 drain lines, one in each corner, and these are just upturned elbows, right? I don't even have really an overflow. It's just a black elbow that's turned up to face the top. And so I've got one
Oh,
in each
okay.
corner of the tank. Um, and you touched on redundancy, so you're going to see that is a common theme of mine. One of my philosophies for success is don't crash your tank. And like I know that kind of sounds like a joke, but it's not. I think most people, can't go 12 to 18 months without having some sort of issue with their tank that makes them
Mhm.
need to start over. And your tank's just never going to reach its potential if you're restarting it every 12 to 18 months. So
Sure. Makes
I've
sense.
got 4. A snail. If a snail clogs one of these, I got 3 more. If 2 snails clog 2 of them, I got 2 more. Right? I've got 4 independent drain lines in the tank. They tee together on each side. So these two tee together down here, and then they run in a an inch or 2 inch drain line all the way out to the garage. These two tee together down here and run down there. So we've got one drain coming down here, one drain coming down there. And then you can see the return line is 1.5 inches and comes back up through this way. And the return is sent back to the tank through a sea swirl. It's some old
Okay.
school stuff. You probably haven't seen one of those in 15 years, but that just helps to kind of randomize the flow.
Yeah, these sea swirls are gold, man. Like, yeah, if you've been around long enough, like that is. They even. Have you seen the new power heads
Yep.
that they're
Yeah.
trying to mimic? Sort of sea swirl with a power head
Yep.
on it. I mean, we
Yep.
we were doing that with a Toonsy
Yeah.
Nano back in the day. I mean,
I think
that's.
I remember people modding the sea swirls to do that.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. But yeah, so that's kind of the plumbing aspect of it. We can touch base on everything out here, and then we'll go out into the garage to kind of see the workroom and everything. Um, while we're on the topic of pumps and flow, so I have a Vortec in each corner of the tank, similar, basically right under each drain. There's a Vortec,
Hmm.
um, and so 2 over here, 2 over there, and um, they kind of go on an alternating pattern at different times throughout the day and at different times on different days. So I don't. Did we talk about this last time? I looked up the tidal duration of some island in the middle of the Pacific Ocean, and in my Apex, I coded actual tidal durations for like a mixed semi-diurnal tide. So a high high, a high low, a low high, and a low low, and those durations don't add up to 24 hours. So they're running different times on different days, right? Just like how high tide doesn't happen at the same time every day, right?
Hmm.
At a Tuesday at 2 p.m., the tide might be coming in. A week later, the tide might be going out, right? And so it's just like that on my tank. At a Tuesday at 2 p.m., it might be running one flow pattern, but next Tuesday at 2 p.m., it might be running a different flow pattern. And what I tend to do are run the opposite pumps. So I would run like this one and then the one in that back corner, so it kind of
Hmm.
gets like a gyre effect, and then alternate them and run the other ones. Sometimes I'll run them both into each other to make a little bit of turbidity, but I think that if you run your pumps in such a way that they're additive to each other, not clashing and canceling each other out, you'll get kind of more bang for your buck. Um,
Yeah, like any wave, whether it be frequency or whatever, light, whatever. If you find the exact match, the resonance, you can amplify it in big time.
yeah.
So
Well,
you just got to tune into that same that pattern, right?
yeah. My thought is like, let's say you're mixing a glass of chocolate milk. You put a scoop of Ovaltine in there. If you're mixing it, what do? You stir it in the same direction like 20 times, right?
Hmm.
You don't stir it clockwise once, counterclockwise once, clockwise once, counterclockwise once. That's a lot of turbidity, but it's not really effective at really getting the fluid moving. So, if you're stirring a glass of water or whatever, each time you go around, it's building more and more and more and more and more. And eventually, you can spill the fluid out of the glass, right? And so I think that having like a longer, running the flow patterns, not in like a quick back and forth. I do the occasional like wave mode, right? But really letting the flow kind of build up on itself. It's if you run the pump for several minutes at in the same settings, you'll notice that it really starts to get, picking stuff up and moving whole blocks of water.
So you're like creating like toroidals, really, literally like ways of lifting. I would imagine that you got a kind of a twofold thing going on there too. You're probably trying to get some things moved out of the reef and away from the reef and up in suspension too. I would
Yep.
imagine that's a part of the strategy, right?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I kind of tell people, if you remember 20 years ago, the big thing was like bare bottom versus deep sand bed, right? And
Mhm.
the bare bottom methodology, one way to think about it is bare bottom was like process the waste, and or sorry, deep sand bed was process the waste, and bare bottom was, remove it before it breaks down. And so I've always had sand in my tanks, but I follow essentially a bare bottom methodology, which is, my goal is to have high flow, mechanical filtration, and a big protein skimmer to try to, keep the waste suspended and moved to the filtration and filtered out before it breaks down. I do
Yeah,
have a refugium to process waste as well, but my goal is not to like let the detritus or the uneaten food, sit in the tank and turn into nitrates and phosphates, right?
I gotcha. Yeah, and then you're sort of polishing it with the refugium.
Yeah, yeah.
So are you using the like a reverse cycle on the refugium for any
I
like pH
am. Yep.
stability?
Yep. I've got
Uh,
two refugiums, and I'm pretty much, yeah, using a reverse cycle on both of them.
like I mean, this really fits very neatly into like what I'm working on in the background. I'm not going to like talk about that right this second, but it kind of inserts in really well because it's very much in the form of mimicry. It's trying to replicate patterns and rhythms and creating these sort of these natural pulses. It's really interesting. You're doing a phenomenal job. I mean, your reef, your fish look really engaged. It looks like a real reef, I mean, like that's what I love about it, when you can get a big tank like this and especially being able to look through it, man. Like that
Yeah.
gives a whole different like contrast as well. So that you can also, I imagine, you can black that room out behind it, or you can light it up even brighter, and you can probably get some really cool photos and some different
Yeah, I mean,
um,
I'll tell you,
perspectives.
it's hard with like, I mean, you can see that goes to another room, and then that room has a bunch of windows, and then this
Oh,
room
okay.
over here has windows back here. So it's hard, to get pictures of the tank in the daytime without glare. I mean, it looks fine to my eyes, but it's funny. I'll go to take a picture, and I'm like, all I see is like the windows, man. But so winter's better because it gets dark outside. Once if it gets dark outside at 5 o'clock, then like boom, I've got several hours of no glare photo opportunities. But in the summer, man, I've got like a very narrow window of when the sun goes down but before the lights get too blue or turn off, where I gotta snap my pictures and videos real quick in that little window of time there. But yeah.
Alan's out there in the chat. Welcome. And Marcelo Castillo, welcome. Someone else, don't know what they're trying to say, but whatever. Moving on. Very cool. Very, 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 very cool. I love the cut throughs as well. I'm sure the fish really appreciate it too.
Yeah, this is getting a
Um,
little closed off. I gotta do a little
mhm.
bit of maintenance in there, but I haven't worked myself up to it. That's RMF Last Dragon, and that one's I gotta pull it out and chop it in half and put it back, probably.
Yeah, man, well done. It's looking really good. It doesn't look like the weather may cause you to miss any beats at all,
Nope,
man. Everything is
nope.
just tuned.
Yeah, and right
Um,
here, I mean, you can go back and look. So this is where that Paletti yellow tip was taking up this entire section, right? It was encrusted onto the wall, and it was at the surface of the water, and it was mashing up on this green slimer. So that entire section. So I took that out. This is a big chunk that I put back. So it's got some room to grow. And then I'll just think about what I want to put back there. I got a lot of options out in the frag tank of things I could put there to kind of grow into that new space. But the last thing will be to deal with this green slimer. Same thing. It's like right up at the top. What I'll probably do is like take this section right here and then just remount that down here, right? And frag off kind of the bottom and the sides. But that'll be a bit of a pain to do. But
Oh yeah. That Slimer's gorgeous, man. I'm gonna be. I'll probably hit you up in the future for a piece of it. But believe it or not, I know you're going to be like Perry. It's just a Slimer, but now I just think it's a must.
oh yeah,
Um,
no, I'm not. I absolutely, you're right. I'm not like Perry. It's just a slimer. No, green slimer and Cali tort are my two favorite corals. I wouldn't. I don't know if I would have. If I could pick two corals, I would do green slimer and Cali tort.
I mean, if you had three, you would almost have to throw a red one in there. But yeah, I'm with you. 110. Like
Yeah, and the
there's
red one, I don't know, might be Forest Fire Digi. I mean, PC Rainbow is nice. You got nice red options, or maybe like if you want to, okay, you want to throw a table in. I guess we would have to do Red Planet, right?
Mhm.
A nice red hyacinthus or something like that. But Red
Because you got the
Dragon's nice.
stag, you got the plate, you kind of got
Yeah,
to have all that contrasting. That's pretty down there in the bottom. Is that just what is that?
it's a Red Dragon.
Oh, that's a beautiful red dragon, man.
It's probably getting like 150 par. So I am not blasting a ton of par in this tank. I've only tested it one time with a meter that I borrowed like 4 or 5 years ago. And I was basically getting 100 to 200 at the bottom, 200 to 300 in the middle, and 300 to 400 at the top. Um, I've added a supplement bar since then, so it might be a little higher, but I mean, that's basically it. And I think that they're all fine. I think the ones up top, like some of the high end, I don't do the like high end blue light special tenuous really. They're the ones that I think you really got to hit them with like the right light or the right par.
Hmm.
Most of the corals I pick are the ones that like are gonna kind of look good. Like a green slimer is gonna look like that, like pretty much no matter what. Like if you've got high phosphate, low phosphate, high nitrate, low nitrate, if you've got whites on, blues on, if you've got 5%, whatever your light settings, I mean, that's what a green slimer looks like, right? It doesn't really care what your trace elements are. Like it's going to look like that. You know what I mean?
Totally.
So I don't like the corals that like you've got to have everything just right for them to look right. I just my thing is like I'm just gonna put all the corals in here, and some of them will look great, and the ones that don't, like, all right, well that one's just not for me then. you
Well,
know?
I was actually talking to a friend of mine yesterday about just that, like, not chasing everything for a coral or two,
Right.
just chalking it up to whatever. And when you're looking in your system and like 80% of them are looking like insane, and then you have 20% that aren't along for the same ride. You can't really stop the momentum or the energy for two that
Yeah.
aren't
Yeah.
along for the
I
same
mean,
pace.
it took me maybe 15 years to figure that out. That like if one coral starts looking bad or dying, I would think something's wrong with the tank, and I'd start making changes. And then
Mhm.
now you start making changes, and now you start pissing off everything else. Just because one, especially acros, just because one acro looks mad or dies, I mean, you're still you're still doing good. If I'm not worried until I start seeing a lot of corals, really not look good. Um, but yeah, that's certainly like one of the things that comes with experience. And there's like a vibe of just like you start seeing something and knowing when to take action versus ride it out. I think
Oh, sure.
that's something that I have a really hard time with explaining. I mean, also like fish diseases and stuff too, right? That like I've got in my head, I know when it's time to treat versus let it, ride out or whatever. But I think
I
that's
have
kind of
theories on that too, man. Like I think a lot of times we like when we're doing the same thing for a coral, we do the same thing for a fish and we stop feeding so much or we get so focused on like, oh, I don't want to overfeed or whatever. And then next thing you know, we're harming the health of the fish too. So, you can also get kind of lost into chasing the health of a specific fish as
yeah.
well. So yeah, it's a good mention.
Here's the other side of the tank. Um, I think in a
Yeah,
couple minutes my daughter will be home, so they'll be making a bunch of noise in here. So I figured I might as well show you this while I can.
that's cool, man. Yeah, there's always got to be a playroom, doesn't there?
Yeah, yeah. It was the formal like sitting room, viewing room, parlor, right? And then I just kind of gave up and gave it to the kids. But
It's
um,
beautiful perspective, man. Thank you for sharing this side before she does get home because it's a whole different. It's like going and visit a different system. You're
I
just
know I always
going.
tell people like it's like a whole nother tank on the other side, and they kind of chuckle at me, and then I walk to the other side, and they're like, "Whoa, like you're serious?" And I'm like, "Yeah, it's like a whole nother tank of like sometimes I can't find a fish, and I'll be like worried, and I'll sit here and watch the tank for like 10 minutes, and then I'll walk over to the other side, and it's just hanging out on the other side. I'm like, how do I lose a fish? I mean, it looks like should be able to see the whole thing, but if they're just hanging out on the other side, sometimes it's you won't see them. So it almost like doubles your space. I mean, you got to be really thoughtful about coral placement. Like, there's no background, right? So like stags, you would normally put in the background because they grow tall. Well, there is no
Mhm,
background, so you have to put them at the top.
mhm.
It's certainly different in that I don't get any. I have to smash everything in the middle because I need to leave space, on two fronts rather than a front and the back. But I get to put stuff up against these sides. So I mean, it's a unique like
Right.
placements.
So
I
one
mean, it's
thing that you don't get too, though, which kind of does limit, and it's good that you mentioned that, especially for people who are designing, right? Because these things are important. You almost have to build that reef down the center line of that system, as far as stags and high dwellers are concerned, like you
yep,
just said. And you don't have that in tank perspective. Sometimes when you can have that side shot that you go to the around, you don't really
yep,
have that, right? You only have
right,
two sides to view right there. And
right,
so, I mean, two beautiful sides, but you can't get that other perspective. So it's important that you brought that up. You really
yeah,
do need to sort of stay in that center line, and not letting things get too far out of array.
yeah.
Um, if you want
I
to
mean,
enjoy both perspectives, I should
It
say.
it would have been nice to have another like another 6 inches would have allowed me to have a little bit of
Mhm.
variation with these three islands not being on the same plane, like one
Right.
farther forward and one farther back.
Hmm.
But I was just limited by this is essentially the largest standard tank size, right? I wasn't in a point where I was looking to pay money for a custom tank essentially, so I was kind of limited to this as the biggest
Yeah, but you
standard
have
tank
really
size
good
available.
technique. You have great technique, man. I mean, so because you have such great technique, you bring it into a third dimension. So even though it looks like a two-dimensional sort
Right,
of like a TV or like a phone or whatever, you
right.
can see the perspective. And with the ability to sort of look through, I mean, it really gives dimensionality, like it really gives different perspective. Um, you could really, really do some really interesting thing with moonlights too, which would be really super cool too. Um, but yeah, man, just absolutely amazing, man. Thank you for taking the time to walk us through and show us what's going on with it. I can see you spend a lot of time and thought with your vision, and I got a question for you.
Yeah.
In your reef planning, how long would you say so people can be realistic to get your perspective? Did you envision this before it came about, or did you just piece it together as the time went by? I kind of know what the answer is, but I would rather you just go ahead and elaborate on and give perspective on that.
Yeah. So, I mean, I'm going to cop out a little bit and say it was definitely both. I mean, I had a vision just in terms of like looking at wild, pictures of coral, wild reefs, looking at scuba diving videos. That the vision that I'm trying to recreate is like fish swimming in and out of the branches of large acropora, a balmy with stags blossoming out of the top and then surrounded by like scrolls and tables, like that little
Hmm.
bouquet look, right? And I mean, I think you can kind of tell that that's where this ended up, right?
Right.
So, but that said, I have pieced this system together, first of all, over the 10 years that this tank has been set up, but largely over the 20 years that I've been in the hobby, right? So, I mean, when I set this system up, I was just dragging around with me the same corals that I'd been dragging around since college. Basically, I had big frog spawns and leathers, and basically all the stuff that after you crash a tank 5 times, the only stuff that's left are going to be hammers and frog spawns and toadstools and finger leathers, right? And but then I decided, I've always wanted like that acro reef, right? And so I transitioned kind of over time. Um, and it wasn't like I just plopped the corals down and they got this way. The look is very deliberate. I often move colonies around to get the look that I want. Like sometimes you'll put a coral in a place, you might put it
Mhm.
up top, and then a year later you're like, oh, that's a table. And so then you've got a table up top shading everything below it, right? I mean, that's kind of cool for the like natural overhang, cave look. But it takes up a lot of real estate, right? And so, I'm kind of thoughtful about putting stags up at the top, first of all, because they grow upward, but then also they typically don't block light as completely as tables do, right? So if a
Mhm.
stag is overhanging some tables, the tables will still get light. And then even tables, there's different versions of tables. There's, tables that are completely thick that are not letting anything through. And then there's tables that are, branchy that still let, some light through.
Mhm.
Um, does that kind of answer the question? I mean, it's a
No,
it
that
is
that totally.
certainly kind of, I guess, like an evolving. It was steps to get to the vision, but I mean, yeah, the vision was always like the acro tank of the months from Reef Central back in the early 2000s, right? That's
Mhm.
that's all I've ever wanted.
Well, it's funny because like like when I'm hooking up with you and like Lee and Rich, you see very similar lines, and with Alan's tank as well. You see real similar lines and real similar like structure, and I think that's there's one thing that I would like to talk about, and it's not to shed light on any negative aspects of the hobby, but it's more about talking about giving it the ability to breathe and come to existence like this. Um, I think a lot of times, man, like people just don't allow it to ever get to this state, and you just can't understand what you're missing out on until you get to where you're at right here. It's glorious. It's absolutely beautiful to see full mature colonies, to see an actual reef. It's just absolutely amazing. A lot of times, people never really let them get to even a fraction of what you see right here.
Yeah, and I
So,
mean, I think part of that is like the new mentality of clip them, cut them up, cut them and sell them.
mhm,
But I mean, part of that is what I said before, where like I think honestly, like most people don't just go 12 to 18 months without screwing something up that crashes their tank. I mean, between flooding, pumping too much RODI in because a float switch stuck, or a heater burned up, or something failed, or you're out crashed because your dosing failed, or the power went out, or I mean, there's just a thousand things. The universe will just make up new shit and throw it at you.
it
I mean,
will.
the reason I have 4 drain lines is because one time I went on vacation and, like, I guess some calcium buildup inside the pipes, like, flaked off and then clogged the pipe. I'm like, what are
Mhm.
you talking about? Like, now you're just making stuff up? I had a return pump fail while I was out of the state. So I run 2 return pumps on 2 separate GFI circuits. Um, I've got leak detectors under the tank here. I guess, while we're kind of meandering into that, I've got a battery backup down here that keeps the Apex running and keeps one of the Vortex running. So if the power goes out, this will click in and keep it's just some water movement going.
Yeah, I think it's really important that you grow into what you've got here, and that you understand as you're growing into what you've got here, that you're willing to accept the responsibility of what you're growing into, because like where you are at right now, you are at a much a state where it doesn't require daily like just sweating and slaving over your tank, but it definitely requires you being connected, and in a way where I think like sometimes people do get in the hobby and that 12 to 18 month thing, they don't make it because they don't realize the level of commitment. I mean, dude, when I look at your fish right now, there's a relationship with your fish. You don't even have to tell me about it, right? I don't even need to really for you to elaborate that you have a relationship with each and every one of them fish in that tank right there. And I can just tell by the size of them. I can tell by how healthy they are. I can tell by the way the pulse of the reef, that they're swimming around the reef like it is absolutely a freaking reef. And I'm just like really stoked that you took the time to show me this because this is like this should be whether you're doing it at 180 gallons or whether you're doing it like me at 40 gallons. Try to scale it so it like really looks as much like a mimicry of like a reef, and do the justice to these animals like they deserve it, and what you've created here is the ability for them to find homes, to seek refuge, to have places to move in and out of. um, you're maintaining a massive fish population, but it's a healthy one because of what you've created there. So kudos to you for that, man. I appreciate it.
Yeah, and I mean, I had more rock in the tank because my thing is like all the fish need somewhere to sleep, right? And so I don't like those NSA scapes that like to me like the fish should be able to get away from you if they want to, right?
Mhm.
But eventually the coral itself provides a significant portion of that, right? Like the chromis just bed down in here. They don't go into the rocks. They just bed down in the corals, right?
Mhm.
And so, you can see that over time, the rock work actually doesn't even go above halfway above the tank. And it was started higher than that, but as the
Mhm.
corals got bigger and the tank filled up, I've slowly removed rock work. I'm probably going to do something similar over here. You can see
That's
I've,
incredible, dude.
this rock goes up. I'm probably going to maybe chop it here and let this be the top of this structure just so I can get a little bit more space to build that up. But
Dude, this
yeah, all
is
the fish are
incredible.
excited. They
Like
think I'm getting fed because I opened up the top. But I was going to show you up
you're
top
like
here.
you're like 12 inches below and you're at the top. That is so much coral mass, dude. Like I'm blown away. I can't even quantify my brain how much of a filter your corals are at this standpoint. Like
Oh yeah, I
it
mean, in this, and wait until you see the frag tanks. I mean, the ratio of the amount of coral to the water volume is insane. And yeah,
oh
I,
my
I mean, I
God.
think that I think that the corals are a significant portion of nutrient export at this point. I mean, a frag tank that's
Mhm.
growing corals that you sell, that's basically another refugium. So on one hand, I have two
Mhm.
refugiums, but I really have five because I'm growing coral and exporting, nutrient exporting that way, every day, basically.
So
I
so
just had somebody come
that's
and pick up some corals
insanity.
today. So
And that so real quick on that note, I mean, let me because my mind, I'm kind of a nerd. You are these all interconnected, all these frag
yeah,
systems?
yep. This is one
Okay.
system. I mean,
Oh, that
it
dude,
would
that's
be nice to
insane.
have multiple systems for safety, but I'm just too like it's hard enough to run one system, man. Like I don't want to run three.
But dude,
Um,
you've got barrier waters. You are creating an ocean. I mean, if
yeah,
you
yeah,
step
yeah.
back
I mean, and
like a couple miles
uh,
back and you go
the
up in the
other
air pretty high, you are literally connecting different like ecosystems.
biomes, yeah. I mean, the other good thing is that if I want to add a frag tank, like was
I
to
got you.
just plumb it in. You know what I mean? Like that's all. I'm already putting in the effort to maintain 350 gallons of water. So just plumb in a frag tank. What's another 50 gallons? You know what I mean? You got to slap some lights over it. But after that, it's no harder to take care of. I mean, I'm already testing. I'm already dosing. I'm already,
Right.
doing the
Mhm.
work to maintain the system. So adding a tank to the system, just kind of doesn't matter. But I
Yeah,
figured I'd
dude,
show you the lights
honestly,
up here.
my dream tank, I've been, running it over in my mind. Like my dream tank is like probably going to include a brute, like one of them massive, like you get from Tractor Supply, like a
Yeah.
250, 300, 400 gallon type deal. That's going to be just basically a massive filtration. That's going to have a display that comes off of it and, giving me just massive, massive volume, but the ability to do this thing where you're mimicking different zones. Sort of like what a lagoon serves as, or an atoll, or kind of like what a beach serves as. Like the protein skimmer literally is mimicking waves crashing. And it's just like when you start bringing all these levels of nature into awareness, and you start taking your system, you don't have to put a lot of money into what you're doing to make this work either, which is so super cool, and it's providing stability on just measures that are just. I get that they're all connected, and I get the risk of like one thing kind of having a bad deal on the whole thing at once, but kind of like putting your eggs in one basket.
Yeah.
But still, I thoroughly believe that one massive interconnected system. To me, I think the benefits far, far, far outweigh the negatives. That's
Yeah.
just my take, but I think everyone has their reasons for how they do their strategies. I mean, at this point, you're locked in, and I think a lot of people do get in the hobby too much, too big, too quick, and get they don't realize like what it takes. So kudos to you for being a part of this journey for so long, and just continuing to rise with it. Oh, I'm gonna cut off. Okay, so Yazin Reef, what I would do, I mean, everyone has their own strategy. I see UV. I definitely think UV works killer. I've the debate over nitrate and phosphate. That's a whole nother thing too. Yes, no, maybe so, depending on whether it's organic or inorganic and the inputs and so forth. I'll probably gonna say like for me, I add sand, and all I did was run Zeobac in a calcium carbonate snow as a flocculant, and it seemed to work really good. I did rinse the shit out of my sand, my dry sand, with tap water tremendously before I installed it, as well as rinsing it off with salt water from a water change. So I just conduct a water change at the same time, and then use that water to cleanse the sand. Okay, Mike, welcome back. All right, so I hope that answers your question on how I handle those sort of uglies.
Sorry, I don't know what happened there. Um,
No, you're good, man. It happens. No worries. Okay, I like the
so
Kessels. Oh God, that's
yeah, I'm
awesome.
trying to flip this around so you can
We talked
see.
about that last time too, about that how
So
yeah, the shimmering
so I've
um
got Kessel A360s down the middle. These are old, they're the old ones.
the
A360 W.
WEs.
Yep.
Uh-huh.
And I've got T5s on either side of that. And then I've also
Uh-huh.
got a line of blue LEDs. This is just like a cheap knockoff bar from AliExpress that's got like a
Hmm.
wide range of like 400 to 480. I think it's got like 5 or 6 different diodes in there. So it's just covering the entire spectrum in the 400s. That just gives a little bit of extra pop.
Oh hell
You know,
yeah.
I don't like the blue look, so it helps the corals fluoresce a little bit, but it doesn't actually make the tank look blue. Um,
Yeah.
these these T5 bulbs are on each side. There's a blue plus and an aqua blue special,
Nice.
and then your eyes are not deceiving you, but the Kessels are moving, and so that's kind of the most unique thing I think about this system. Is
You created an electronic rail?
Yeah, well, I bought it. It's not. I didn't. I won't take the
Okay.
credit for designing it, but this is the rail system up here. It's called Light Rail. It's for indoor growers. Take
Yeah,
that
I know what it is
grain of
for.
salt, whatever you think that means.
No,
Uh,
I already know what that's for. Yeah, yeah. It's all good.
but yeah, I mean, basically, there's this rail that goes along up here, and this bar, and the Kessels are mounted to the bar, and this little trolley just moves back and forth like a foot. It just moves from where it is now to where that thumb screw is, and it moves back and forth once a minute. Um, and so all that's doing, in a normal tank, you've got like these 2 foot sections. Let's say you would normally have the Kessel mounted kind of centered in the 2 foot section. It's basically, 6 inches off center to the right, and then it'll move and then be 6 inches off center to the left. So it gives that kind of a dynamic, it's moving now, like a dynamic light, right? Um, so I mean, the obvious reason for that is it increases your coverage. I get to use a point source light, but I get the benefits of more of a, more coverage, right? It would cost me twice as much money to run 6 Kessels, or I can get this mover
Right.
for, I think it was under $300, honestly.
Well, you're
Um,
also getting the movement, which is creating a whole different look too, with the the way the Kessels add so much beautiful shimmer.
yeah, yeah. I
So
mean,
that's got
with
to be
these
pretty cool looking.
big, with big acro colonies, there is definitely shading and shadows from a point source light. I mean, there's no way to get around that. It is true. Um, it's not an issue if you've got corals that move. It's not an issue if you've got corals that coat the rocks. But for three-dimensional corals that are layering, they have shadows and shading, and you can see the undersides of certain branches have shadows, or that one branch will cast a shadow across something below it, right? And
Hmm.
I mean, I've set up the camera and run it on a time lapse, and when these things move, especially when you look back at it, I mean, you can literally watch the shadows moving, which I think is really important for overall coral health, but still getting the visual appeal of a point source light. I still love to get shadows of the fish and the corals on the sand bed. The dynamic contrast of dark caves and bright up top. So I love the point source light, but moving the Kessels and then coupling that with the T5s as fill really kind of gets the best of both worlds.
That's well thought out, brother. Well thought out. And I love the idea of trying to conserve where you can. I mean, I know that you've got a lot of energy, no matter what, invested into this system. But if you can cut a little bit of energy out here or there and make it a little easier on yourself, it's certainly worth the effort
Yeah.
of of your creation. So I know you didn't create the actual swivel bar, but the idea of putting it in play is, and I think that's pretty cool, man.
Yeah.
So.
And then I basically use these other little Kessels as spotlights just down in the corners.
Mhm.
I've got the T5s are 5 foot in length and it's a 6 foot tank. So there's about 6 inches on either end that aren't covered by the T5s. I think
Mhm.
normally that's not a problem because most tanks you're kind of viewing from the sides. So you're not stacking rock all the way to the sides, or you might just put some low light corals in there. But I'm basically trying to keep acros all the way up to the edges. And big acros that are casting shadows. So I basically just got a Kessel kind of providing a little bit of spotlight
Mhm.
in these two corners, and then over on this side, I'm doing the same thing but with an AI blade. I'm running a blade perpendicular here just to kind of get a little bit of extra light right down here, right,
You
allowing me
seem
to
to
do
be making
corals.
everything happy as hell right there too.
Yeah, yeah, right. And I mean, like, there's the Kessel right now. It's getting this area, but remember, half the time it spends over
Right.
here. So, I
So
think
that fills
it's
that gap. I
yeah,
gotcha.
yeah. And again, I just like this is my version of tinkering. Is like I just like slamming extra lights up here or whatever, and I love the enclosed canopy so that I don't have to make
Mhm.
it look nice. I can just kind of hang stuff with chains and screw a fan into the wall, and it all looks fine.
Well, you can try different lighting schemes a lot easier without making big investments too. So
Yeah.
that's another nice thing about it because you can conceal it. So it gives you variability and the I've often even thought of just like putting horticulture LEDs and then just accenting with blue light,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
I think it would be very doable, honestly, but it might not be very appealing. But you know, I think there is something to be said about giving them that spectrum for at least a certain block of the day, so I can obviously tell that that's more than being handled here in this case.
Yeah,
So
and I think that the corals will even look better, if you give them some white light or some full spectrum, they will look better later under the blues. Right?
they do.
I think that
Mm.
they develop more, pigmentation and different fluorescence that it'll impact how, giving them one kind of light, it's not as simple as A to A and B to B. They look this way under whites and this way under blues. Well,
Mhm.
you might not like the way they look under whites, but giving them whites makes them look better under blues. So I always tell people, if you don't like the way the tank looks under whites, just run it when you're at work or when you're not there. But um, I'm a big proponent of not the overly blue look.
I think there's also like a dynamic, like when you look at tanks that are getting a very, very healthy full spectrum with a good amount of white light encompassed into that. I can just look back from here and just through the digi right there and the slimer. Typically, those can be very thin corals. But when you're getting a lot of that white and that red, that those spectrums, I think it adds density and thickness to the corals. So you can just tell like your corals are very healthy and they're carrying weight. Do
Yeah.
you know what I mean? They're not
Oh yeah.
stretched out and like they're actually, they're carrying some serious amount of density. And it's really interesting because it's something I've been thinking a lot about, about the influence of a blue tank and what that might look like versus a tank where it has more of a fuller spectrum. So I'm kind of thinking that maybe the way the corals branch and stretch out and they kind of maybe be presumably thinner branched in a bluer environment, but I don't know
Yeah, I
that.
mean, honestly, like I start to go down those rabbit holes. There's just so many variables, right? I mean, like there's the light intensity, the light spectrum, there's the
Mhm.
flow, and then that's not even taking into account like water chemistry. So it's just
Nutrients,
so, I mean,
yeah.
it's like that's something that's so hard about this hobby is that there's almost no sure
No,
things.
no.
I mean,
There
you can
isn't.
you can do the exact same things that I do, and you're going to get different results. I mean, sometimes I do the same thing that I do, and I get different results. I've had a tank that I struggled with nitrates and phosphates being high the entire time I ran it, and then I took it down and moved it to a new house, and I set it up and did everything exactly the same, and the nitrates and phosphates were low for the next 2 years. And I didn't. All I did was like move it across town and something changed and the whole husbandry, the results were different. But
It would be neat to do sort of a full range, like trying to catch like at the water roughly all at the same time, but all your little microsystems connected to see what the variability in what the water would be testing like in each of those little different tanks that are.
microclimates, yeah.
Yeah, those microclimates. I didn't really want to overuse the word, but yeah, I think that's what really does happen. I know many years ago, Abe from Coral Euphoria did a video of his interconnected systems and kind of talked a little bit more in depth on that idea that there was these microsystems that were interconnected that were behaving differently. Which I thought that was really interesting. So I'm
Yeah.
sure you see the same thing.
Yeah, so how about I take you in the back now? I want to make sure we get a chance to finish walking through
Absolutely.
the equipment and stuff like that. Bye, Tank. I'll see you in a minute. Couple minutes.
See, that's good for you to do that.
All
Thanks
right.
listening to you. Oh, while you're doing that, um, ERNet 100, welcome. Thank you, sir. Good to see you. Al Cope, good to see you. Welcome. Thank you for being a part, for taking a peek through this amazing system. So if you're catching up with us right now, we just spent some time going over things that we missed the first time on the display, and now we're really diving into the under the hood stuff. So I'm going to go ahead and let Mike pick up the mic, pun, and
Yep.
go ahead and roll with it, my friend.
So yeah, I mean this is the life support system, right? It's kind of grown organically over the years, but the heart of it is the sump here. So the plumbing comes out from the crawl space back here and runs back to these kind of dual sumps. One drain line goes into the back of one sump, one drain line goes into the back of the other, and then it flows forward. So roughly half of the turnover is processed through each sump in a given pass through the filtration. So I've got a big skimmer back here. This is called a Reef Octo Pro 300. I bought it used in 2009. So
That's
they
a
don't.
that's a hell of a skimmer.
Yeah, I have replaced the pump a couple times, but I mean, in terms of the acrylic body, like I don't see any reason to change it out, right? The pump's the moving part. That's what fails. Um, so it's doing a good job for me.
So it's
Um,
a Reef Octopus. It's one of the original Octos.
yeah, yeah. I
Is
don't
that a
know if you
recirculating skimmer? It kind of
it
looks like it is.
it's not. It's just got an intake back here. I think this is
Okay.
like a bubble blaster. It used to use a Laguna pump, but I switched it out with a
Uh-huh.
bubble blaster, and then yeah, it just goes in there and does its thing.
Those
Um,
Laguna pumps were killer, man.
I am running ozone. That's something I started maybe 2 years ago. I think I like I like what I see from it. It helps, over time. I'm very conservative with it, but it helps just with like the yellow bucket test, the white bucket test. They say you put your water in a 5 gallon bucket, and then, I got to the
Mhm.
point. I don't like running carbon in a reactor. I think it's a little too aggressive. But I got to the point where, if I took some water out of the tank and put it next to some freshly mixed water, I was like, that's really that's what's in the tank. So, and it was just another thing for me to kind of tinker with, right? So I run ozone into the skimmer for about 4 hours in the afternoon. That's why there's a bag of carbon on top there, is to theoretically catch any that comes out. And then so over on this side, I've got a pump fed filter sock over here. I used to have a roller mat that sat up here, one of the like first generation Thieling roller mats, but they don't import the replacement rolls for them anymore. So I had to just kind of retrofit a filter sock into here. And then there's a refugium section here with Ketomorpha. These are just, like plant grow bulbs from Amazon or whatever. I mean, they're
Mhm.
not anything special. They're just cheap. Um, and then, like I said, I've got two return pumps, right? There's a little jumper tube right here to balance the flow. Because obviously, the amount that drains through this drain line isn't going to be exactly the same as what this return pump pumps. So that
Mhm.
little jumper just, you can think of it as
It's like an
one.
auto leveler.
Yeah, you can think of it as one sump with a divider down the middle, as
Mhm.
opposed to like two sumps, right? But yeah, so they tee together and then essentially run back to the tank. I've got a manifold here that feeds a couple different things. This was originally set up to run like phosphane and carbon reactors, but I don't use those anymore. So this actually is going into a 5 micron filter sock, which is very small for like water polishing, and it's just a trickle of water that's going in there. Um, this you can see I used to run a nitrate reactor probably 8 years ago before I had all this coral growth that was sucking up my nitrates. Um, that line is supposed to go to a chiller, but I found a puddle under it a couple months ago, so I got to figure something else out for that. And then the majority of the water comes back through here and goes back out to the tank. Some of it tees off and feeds the other systems over here. So lights off right now, but this is a 20-gallon long refugium. So the water comes up and comes into here first. This was originally a mix of a bunch of different macroalgae, but um, codium kind of took over the past year. It used to have like gracilaria and a couple of ulva and stuff like that, but now it's just full of codium. And then this tank drains down into these two tanks. So, this is one frag tank here. This was the original frag tank I set
Oh.
up, but then I filled it up and needed to plumb in another one. So I plumbed in this one. This was originally a refugium, but I had to turn this into another frag tank. And then eventually I had to plumb in this frag tank as well. So this is a 40-gallon breeder. This is like a 33 long. It's like a 55, but shorter. And that's a 20 long down there.
Now, did
Um,
you do all the you drilled all these yourself?
yeah. I've been
Yeah.
drilling tanks for decades at this point.
No, I figured because, um, yeah, yeah, you can just tell because you wouldn't want to try to get those reef ready.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and I mean, it's just a 20-gallon tank. I mean, my neighbor had a 40-gallon tank and they knew I had aquariums and they were like, "Oh, do you want our tank?" And I was like, "Yeah, sure, I'll use it." And I just plumbed it in over here, right? So, and these 20s are like Petco dollar a gallon, 20-gallon tanks. But
Now,
yeah,
do
I
you
mean,
have
I'm
like?
not sure I would have ended up with this setup if I had planned it from the beginning.
Mhm.
I didn't intend to have this many frag tanks or this, but this is just kind of what I've pieced together over the years. So It's where I am now, and then I keep some quarantine tanks down here. There's nothing in them right now, but that's a 10 and a 20
I mean,
now.
with them being that small, if something were to go messed up, it's not that big of a deal, if you really think about it. So you could get a brute can underneath it real quick if you had to. So I mean, worst case scenario. So yeah, I don't disregard that idea at all. I mean, I know you've pieced it together along the way, but I wouldn't have any worries. Just like you, I would have no hangups over interconnected tanks like this.
Yeah.
But
It's the flow through isn't quite enough to keep like the temperature regulated if it gets really hot or really cold. So I do run. They have their own temperature controllers on them. So but by the time that the water comes from the sump, comes up here, comes down here, and then comes down to here, it will have equilibrated with the garage temperature if I don't have its own temperature control. So each of these tanks has their own heater and fans, even though they're on the same system. But
yeah, you're
yeah,
just treating
lighting.
like their own little microclimates,
Yeah,
you know.
lighting. I see there's a question about
Yeah,
the
lighting. Yeah.
lighting. So yeah, I mean, as you saw before, I'm a proponent of T5s, if not just because they're cheap, right? So I've got two T5s. This frag tank, I have two T5s. It's the same setup, a Aqua Blue Special and a Blue Plus. And then these are Orfec light bars. This is an Orfec Blue Plus. And the corals did fine without it, but nobody wants to buy corals unless you shine some blue LEDs on them. So I had to, I had to slap a light bar up there just to make them look presentable, right? Down here is a bunch of Orfec light bars. These corals look really good. This is a lot of par down here. I have to be careful not to bleach stuff if I throw it down here, but this is just LEDs. This is just the light bars. And then over here's a bunch of T5s. I have 6 T5s
Oh wow.
over this one. So
So do you do like a staging, like where you have some that are getting ready to go out, like where they
yeah,
are
I
in a
mean, not
finishing
officially,
system?
but the corals love the T5s. It's like
Mhm.
it's like a gentle, warm blanket. You know what I mean? I think LEDs are like harsh, and I think that color a coral coloring up, you realize that's a defense mechanism because it's being like hit. It's got that's suntan lotion because it's being shot with with light, right? So, um the corals love the T5. So typically when I first frag stuff up, I'll throw it back in here. Or if I'm holding orders for people or things like that, or growing out some of my own backups. Down here, I can throw stuff down here just to color them up because they do color up. And I take photos down here because this looks best under the LEDs. And then this is just my main tank that I try to sell out of just because it's easy for me to keep track of it. And it's got a good mix. It's got the best of both worlds, the LED and the T5. But yeah, over here, I mean, I do have some blue LED. I've got like a blue. There's another like cheap China brand blue bar that runs down the middle there, and then I've got some Orfec bars on the sides here too. But this is mostly T5s, and I mean the other reason I did that is because I bought 3 2 bulb retrofits, and I think I spent like $350 on to light this tank with T5s. I would have spent well over $1,000 if I was lighting this tank with LEDs, right?
Mhm.
And so I mean, it's just I'm just trying to slap together a frag tank. I'm not like building out my one and only crowning achievement display. I'm not going to spend $1,000 on lights. So
Well, here's the thing, man. Like, we could get lost into that, but I mean, like, every head out there that really is in the acro game has T5s of some sort and somewhere nearby, whether they're disclosing it or not. So we'll just leave it at that. We know what they bring, so we don't really need to jump into too much of that. You've got an amazing setup. I can't even like. I'm blown away at the colors. Like, the corals do like the T5, and when you're running an acro system like your display, I get it. You got the Kessels to give you, everything that you need. And if you're running your own little business, you use that as your love. That's what you put out on Instagram. But behind the scenes, this is doing a lot of the work. And you just know T5s are putting in more value than just the light that they're putting into the system. So,
They are, and I'm careful not to refer to it as I use T5 supplements to my LEDs.
Mhm.
I don't view it that way at all. I think that the T5s. I think if I took the T5s off my display tank or my Kessels, I think the system would not be successful. Those are two legs of the same body.
Mhm.
You know, if I turn the T5s off for a day, because I used to tinker with some like cloudy day ideas where like I wouldn't run the T5s for some days, I wouldn't run the LEDs for some days. If I don't run the T5s, that pH curve is flat, which means stuff's not in there photosynthesizing, right? So that's telling me those T5s are not supplements. Like they are doing a significant portion of the heavy lifting. Um, but yeah, I mean, I see there's a question here about
Yeah, yeah, go for it, man.
purple plus bulbs. Yeah, so the thing about purple plus bulbs is it's what's called a manufactured purple. So it's red light and blue light. And your eye sees that as purple, but it's not a purple wavelength. So you're not going to get it's not the same as running a an LED that's 400 to 420 nanometers, which is true purple light. You're actually just running a blue light with some red mixed in. So I don't like the purple plus for that reason. I really only use, I mean, the blue plus is just like your standard blue bulb, right? Um, when I set this tank up, I used the Tropic Sun like 65K
Mhm.
bulb, like the freshwater bulbs, because I was so used to a white light. But over time, I switched to the Aqua Blue Specials, which are a solidly white bulb, and I think that they provide, you know, the full spectrum, right? And over here, I actually use Blue Plus and Coral Plus. The Coral
Yep.
Plus are just a little bit
Mhm.
bluer than the Aqua Blue Special. I'm just too scared to change anything on the display tank, so I'm never going to change that combo. I feel like I accidentally stumbled onto the winning combination, so like why would I change it? But I don't. I mean, it's 6 of one, half dozen the other. It kind of doesn't matter. But I mean, I think those are the bulbs. If I had more bulbs over my tank, right? I've only got 4 bulbs over the display. I would probably run actinic to give that. I think actinic's better for that purple spectrum than the purple plus. But I only have room for 4 bulbs over the display. So
So I'll chime in for, I've had, it's kind of the only thing I've ever really used myself. So I'll say that, I think it really depends on the amount of bulbs. So if anyone who's out there that's going to go down the T5 rabbit hole, the more bulb arrays you have available, the more fun you can have with T5s, in my humble opinion. But I can only share with you my experience. I was fortunate enough to be turned on to KZ bulbs, like from the original onset, going all the way back to like 2005, six. And I use the and currently use the KZ Coral Life, which is the 10K spectrum, the original one, the Coral Light I meant, and it's a 10K spectrum. And then I use the Fiji Purple from KZ, and I think the Purple Plus is sort of like their ATI's sort of rendition of that. But I've had great success with the Fiji Purple. Here's what I'll tell you: from what I see, the Fiji Purple brings the reds and the pinks that you get from those bulbs. To me, brings you next level. But the Coral Plus, if you ever follow Big E Ed, I'm sure you've heard of him, Mike.
yeah,
He's was always just like, look, just go with a 50-50 and A and B, do Coral Plus and Blue Plus, and you pretty much are going to hit the money on everything with that
yeah,
bulb array.
yeah,
And it's basically an AB. It's an aqua blue special and a purple plus, like formulated sort of together, and a lot of the spectral arrays are brought in. So then the complement of the blue plus, really encapsulates pretty much what I would think you would really need. Yeah, the KZ bulbs are super underrated. Yes, sir. Been using them all my time in the hobby, but they're expensive as hell. That's the problem. And if you're gonna be replacing T5s, on as many as you're going to be replacing there, Mike, it could get expensive
I'll tell
fast.
you a secret. I change my T5 bulbs every 2 years.
I don't think you need to change them as much, man. Like I agree with you. I blast it. I don't even use the light shield. I think it puts too much heat. And I was talking to Pacific Sun, the owner of it, Chimik, many moons ago, and he had developed a technology where you could literally like on a T5 unit. I forget which model he had produced, but it was in between the ATIs. And he had like what he did is he went with a much bigger fan. And his theory on bulbs were the cooler you could keep them, the more life you could literally get out of them, and of course the better the pop. Like they would have more efficiency in terms of lighting. And so yeah, even if you can just take a fan and keep it on the underside, like blasting up into the lights. That's why I keep the light shield myself off, is for that right there, Mike, to
Yep.
keep, yep, just to
Blowing
keep them
right on it.
bulbs. Yep.
And I've got one right there blowing right on it.
Yeah, absolutely. So that will extend the life of bulbs, guys. If you're following along out
Yeah.
here, Mike doesn't change them, but every 2 years. And if you start over in the beginning and you look at his display, I don't even really need to tell. I don't even look. Just look at his core, his freaking frag systems. There you go. Look at the color. Look at the growth. His frags are freaking huge. I mean,
This is my like everlasting Monty. I didn't even put that. That just I don't know where that came from. It's like purple cap, right? And so every
oh my
time,
gosh, it's just part of the tank at this point.
yeah, and I just like snap off. If it starts to shade this stuff, I just snap it off, and I'm like, boom, there's some purple cap.
Calcium reactor media if you had one.
Yeah,
So yeah, so anyway, that lends us into the back into the heart of the system. So how are you supplying minerals, and
yeah.
are you doing any trace or anything like that?
Yeah, so the short answer of what I dose is homemade balling, right?
Okay.
So there's a thread on, it's like the Randy's two-part. Nowadays there's a thread on Reef to Reef where you can do baking soda for the alkalinity portion,
Hmm.
and then you can bake the baking soda to make it sodium carbonate, and
Hmm.
that'll let you dissolve more of it into solution. I don't follow the recipes. I just put I've made my own recipes that are extremely concentrated because I go through so much. I would be going through like liters a day of the less concentrated stuff. I'm going through several hundred mils of my DIY stuff, and I think, I mean, I don't know, somebody might do the math and call me out on this, but I think it's like 4 times as strong as like the stuff you buy off the shelf or the original like recipes. But they don't need to be the same concentrate. Like I'm dosing with a pump anyway. I don't need the convenience of like 50 mils of this, 50 mils of that. Like I don't care. I just dose what I need to maintain my numbers, right? So this dose is a backup because I dropped my first one in the sump a couple weeks ago. But these are my two alkalinity solutions. So I have I showed you the baking soda, and then I use lye or sodium hydroxide. And the sodium hydroxide gives you a significant pH boost. It gives you a comparable pH boost. My understanding is that it's the same pH boost per unit of alkalinity added as Kalkwasser, except you can make it as concentrated as two-part, right? To me, Kalkwasser, I mean, I love it in that I love that everyone else has had so much success with it, but I don't use it. It takes up space. It's kind of messy. So to me, the hydroxide works better. So I dose the sodium hydroxide during the times of the day that the pH is naturally falling because it gives a more significant pH boost. And then I dose the sodium carbonate solution during the times of day when the pH is naturally rising, and just in an effort to kind of stabilize that pH. I mean, does it work? A little bit, but it's hard to fight the amount of photosynthesis I have in this system. It's hard to fight that pH swing. And then
Let me ask you
calcium,
a
I just
question
use
while we're on
calcium
that.
chloride.
Are you staggering any of those photo periods, Mike, to try to get any benefit of pH stability?
No, I mean it would be the smart thing to do, but like I need to see these during the daytime. Like I have people
I
buy to
got
sell
you.
corals. I'm out here, I come down for lunch. I work from home a couple days a week. I come down, the stupid snails and the urchins will knock stuff into each other. And so, I tinker out here so that I don't have to tinker in the main tank. So I need to be able to see these systems. But what I do have is at the end of the day, if the pH gets above 8.6, I start shutting these lights off. So sometimes this light will go off early if the pH of the system gets above 8.6 by the end of the day. And it does sometimes with that hydroxide.
I imagine
Um,
so.
I also dose the different amounts of the alkalinity throughout the day in an effort to maintain a stable intraday pH or alkalinity level.
Okay.
And so, a lot of people may not know this, but the alkalinity usage is not consistent throughout a 24-hour period. It is significantly more during the second half of the photo period, or particularly during the photo period, but in the afternoon and evening, the
Hmm.
is when most of the alkalinity is taken up, and then comparatively little overnight. Which I thought was interesting because the old train of thought was always to dose your alkalinity overnight in an effort to stabilize pH. But now I wonder how much people were giving themselves alkalinity swings at the expense of stable
Yeah,
pH.
it's
And
a breathing mechanism. I think it's like the tank is respiring, and I think it's just a delayed effect,
yeah,
right?
but
And the aqua
so
whiz.
this system goes through about 3 DKH a day.
Mhm.
And 2 DKH of that is in just a few hours in the afternoon. And I know that because one time one of these breakers tripped and I was over at a friend's house, and I have this system set up so that half my heating and cooling is on one circuit, half my heating and cooling is on the other. My return pump's on one, I got another return pump on the other. So I didn't freak out. I was like, I'll finish up over here and I'll head home. And like 2 hours later, the Trident ran, and my alkalinity had dropped almost 2 DKH in just a few hours. And so, to me, so I use the Trident to test alkalinity 6 times a day. A lot of people say you don't need to test 6 times a day. Well, you don't have this much coral growing, man. Like if I go 24 hours without dosing, I might crash this whole tank. I need to be able to find and resolve issues like immediately if there's anything wrong with my dosing. So I've got the Trident for calcium and alkalinity and magnesium. Magnesium, I just kind of, if I notice it's low, I'll just take like two scoops of mag chloride and dissolve it in a bucket of water and dump it in the sump. I just bolus mag every couple weeks whenever I notice it's low. And then I've got the Trident NP that's new in the last like month or so. I know there's a lot of like back and forth about them, but mine's been good, knock on wood. So I think it's just another tool in the toolbox. I'm really bad about testing. I probably tested my nutrients 3 times in the past year. So it's another like line of defense. If it catches anything that goes wrong, even just one time, it's worth it. It's worth the money.
Yeah, no
But
doubt. I mean, the information when you're is that, and I think that's something that too. And a lot of people think that you have to like have this major investment when you get started here. And I think you should probably wait and grow into these things as your demand grows, and your knowledge grows, instead of trying to hit all these benchmarks for all these different things in your system, whether it be equipment or whether it be just even the minerals that you set it at in the beginning. I think when you start looking at it, there's a lot of waste and just getting your system to the point of that. Are you going to make it past that 1 year mark? So yeah, I think it's something that you should grow sort of into. And when you have this much on the line, you would be silly not to have an Aqua Whiz or something like
yeah,
this to
yeah,
to give you that sort of that real time snapshot of where you're at, because one little thing, and
yeah.
gosh,
Do I need to test my alkalinity 6 times a day? 99.9% of the time, no. But there might be that one day where, yeah, I need I need that, and if I can have that one day, then great. Check out these honkin' Aptasia.
Oh my God, those are big. They're probably acting as a part of the filter too.
Yeah. I mean, I just leave them alone. This is full of like tube worms and stuff. I mean, this is like 10 years worth of growth down here. There's like who knows what crusting all over here. I posted a reel a little while back, but I took this pump out when I switched from the roller mat to the filter sock. I took that pump out for the first time in 8 years, and it had like 6 inches of vermitids crusted onto it. It looked like those tube worms at the bottom of the ocean with the hydrothermal vents.
Those
But
things
yeah,
have
this is
given me so many infections on my hands. I can't even tell you how many infections I've had on my
yeah.
hands from them damn things. But
I mean, I manage them in the display by just I don't broadcast feed any like small particulate foods. I
mhm.
don't do any coral foods or any like small stuff. So I think they just
You don't
starve
dose
out.
skim. You don't
Huh?
dose your skim mate back to your tank like.
I do not. I feed I feed the fish, and the fish poop feeds everything else. But
Yeah, I'll talk about that later on. But yeah, that's very cool, dude. How long are you running those T5s on the frag tank?
I think
Like
about
hour
7
wise.
hours. I think it's from like noon to 7.
Okay, cool.
I actually did a thing. For many years, I ran them in a split 4 hour photo period. Like I did 4 on, 4 off, 4 on.
Hmm.
Um, but again, this is mostly just that like I have people over that want to buy the frags. I like to tinker in the frag tank, and so I really just kind of need the lights on when I'm typically working on the tanks. So um, I think it would probably help the pH if I ran them like early in the morning and late at night or something like that. But then in the middle of the day, I wouldn't be able to tinker on the frag tanks. So, and that's what I
I'm
like.
gonna get.
I pack
I'm
up
gonna go ahead
pack
and
up
tell
orders to
you
send them
that
out and stuff like that. So,
I can tell you this, man. Like you can get lost into that realm, and honestly, it doesn't do anything because I had my old tank, and in the opposite room, I had my sump, in a completely different room with a frag tank, and I was almost matching the amount of par or the amount of light, I guess wattage, even right, and running them on separate cycles, and I still saw that same pH dip
yeah.
regardless. So I don't know that it would be really worth it. I think the more you make it, like you said, at some point, this needs to be user friendly for you. I mean, I know we want to try to get it as close as we can to nature or benefit for pH or, all these things, but sometimes you can get a little overboard with that too.
Yeah, for
Um,
sure.
what about air exchange? Are do you have like a way? Are you managing humidity in there, or you running a dehumidifier, or you got fresh air coming in and out of there, or anything of
So
this nature?
I'm pulling air for the skimmer from outside. So this
Okay.
this tube, I've got a hole in this windowsill, and comes through here, and this is just a carbon. So that's just a fail
Mhm.
safe. I don't know if there's
I did the same
pesticides or
thing.
if the lawn guy starts up a weed whacker right in front of there and it kicks out a thing of smoke. I don't know. It was $30, and I figured why not. But yeah, in here, I installed a through the wall vent fan up in the wall there, and that's controlled on an Inkbird temperature controller. And so basically, what that'll do is if the temperature out here gets really bad, it'll pump air from the house into the garage.
Oh, okay.
Not the most energy efficient thing in the world, but it just takes the edge off, right? I mean, it's on those days when it's 100 degrees outside and it's getting into the mid 90s in here, it at least just keeps it from getting completely out of control, right? But I mean, it's a large volume of air. I don't do anything special for like the humidity or the ventilation. I mean, you see my wife parks in the garage, so that door is opening and closing several times a day anyway, just with the car coming in and out.
Oh, yeah, yeah, true.
She is really good I mean, she's been with me on this whole tank journey. She's into the tanks too. You kind of have to be once it becomes a fixture of your house. But so she like understands all that. So she's very good about like open the door and then get all your stuff situated and then turn the car on and leave, right? Like she knows not to like idle the car there or run it with the door open or closed or
Right.
whatever, so she's careful to get
So,
minimize
so
the
yeah,
car. But
Rangy Dom said, "I'm also a big fan of just leaving the sump to do its thing and grow monsters." Ha ha ha. But
yeah,
I kind
yeah.
of I kind of want to touch on that because that's an extended filter. So,
Yeah,
the fact
absolutely.
that
Like
they're,
cryptic, I got rock down here.
uh-huh.
I've gone through periods where like all these baffles would just be full of rubble. And for like years, every time a coral died, I would just throw it down here. And I ended up with so much. I went through and cleaned it out because I was just like, all right, I got too much of this stuff. But I do like the idea of, like cryptic zones,
Mhm.
just extra habitat for stuff.
Mhm.
I mean, I do stir this up, right? Like I'll put a power head down here, or when I need to dump water in, I'll dump it in here just to keep it. I don't love the idea of like detritus settling out in a system and making like a thick bed. I mean, some people like that stuff. I don't love detritus. I typically try to keep detritus out of the system. Um, but I do like the you know cryptic zones, so to speak. Something I've thought about doing a lot more, right? Like
Oh,
plugging in, I've thought about
yeah, it all
plumbing in
matters.
something like that. But yeah, and this refugium, I guess I can turn the light on, but this ends up crusting over with coralline algae, and I have no idea what the hell's going on in there. So like twice a year I scrape it off, and that's where I was like, I thought I had a whole bunch of different macroalgae, dragon's breath and gracilaria, and then I scraped it off and I was like, oh, it's just codium. Because like I just let that go wild and do its thing.
Oh, there he is.
This is just like a Amazon $20 grow thing,
Yeah,
right?
does just fine. Wow, look at
Just
all that.
stacked full of nasty shit. But
Yeah,
like
but
you're saying, like the
like,
biomes, right? Like you've got the clean, crisp Acropora reef crest, and then the nasty lagoon or whatever the hell this is. But it's not really nasty.
no,
It's just
it's
a
like
different biome.
it's you're kind of like it's like what I'm on to is like the regenerative loop. I mean, I'm pumping in. I'm trying something different. If anybody's listening, I'm actually running skimmer juice to my tank every hour on a 1 milliliter basis. Every hour, it's taking whatever's in my skimmer and dosing it to my reef. Now, here's all I can tell you so far. I haven't lost anything. What is it doing? Don't know. Don't test pH. Don't test anything really. Now, I don't have like what Mike's got going on there. So I am like Mike and I talked about that earlier. So anybody's following along, if you're trying to sell coral and you're trying to like, you know, have a massive display and all of this amount of coral mass, you probably aren't going to want to do that kind of shit. So just FYI.
Yeah,
But
yeah.
I'll tell you what happens in the
This
future.
is
I'm gonna.
just this is not a system to experiment on. You
No,
know what I mean?
no,
Like I've
no,
just
no, no,
got
no.
I've just got too much to lose. You know what I mean?
No, you don't want to really play funny business with that system. But you know, I will tell you that I've found with this little system here that stability myth. I've broken some of these myths. I've broken a lot of myths in the hobby. But I don't really. It's not what the nature of this is about, and it's not to really point fingers and say, "Oh, I got you" or anything. It's just more of I kind of want to know limitations. I kind of want to know how low can you go with nutrients? How high can you go with nutrients? Or how
Yeah.
high can you go with alk and how low can you go with alk all in a month or so? Like
Yep.
what are the thresholds? And like you said, there is a payback. The payback is if you play like with these kind of things, you might stunt your coral growth long term. And then you just have to kind of start over. So that's why I don't have corals that are growing at the rocking pace that Mike does or that Rich has and stuff. I'm in a different part of what I'm
Yeah.
doing.
I let
So
you guys do the experimenting, and then I'll just watch from here, man.
well, I'm also watching. I'm watching you doing your thing too. So I think it's all good, and it all brings different perspective, and I think that's good for the hobby, and just like what you're doing right here is just there's a lot of old school here, a lot of well thought out, do
Yeah,
it
I mean, this
yourself,
is I
a
know
lot
this
of
system looks crazy, but it's not that crazy. In that, like my husbandry, like I'm dosing homemade calcium and alkalinity.
It's
I have
just
a
as
big
basic as it
skimmer
gets.
and a filter sock. I have a refugium. I mean that's that. I mean I am running ozone, okay, but I don't think that you need to do that. I ran this tank for 8 years without ozone. It was corals were still growing out of the water. I have a big UV sterilizer. I'm mostly running that because I have an Achilles tang and a powder blue tang, and the reason I put it in there in the first place is I have a koi pond. When I moved to this house, I hadn't built a koi pond yet. I was bored one weekend and plumbed in the koi pond's UV sterilizer into the system. So, I mean, that's my version of tinkering. Is I'm very careful to like do things that are not experimental. I mean, like ozone is tried and true. UV sterilizers are tried and true, right? So I'm not like finding some weird thing on the store and adding it to my tank, but I experiment within the realm of well-established results. I think the other things I do dose like keto grow. That just kind of replaces some of the minerals for the ketomorpha since I've got macroalgae growing here and there. I dose a very small amount. It's like a mill a day, and this is a 400-gallon system. And then, you know, we talked about this last time, so I don't want to go too down the rabbit hole. But trace elements. If you ask me, like in a one sentence, what is my answer? Is that I don't dose trace elements. I don't.
Mhm.
I do regular water changes with instant ocean salt. I do sporadic ICPs just because I'm fortunate that I can afford them and I'm bored and I don't have anything else to fix, and so I just do some ICPs. That said, I do occasionally dose some random things. So right now I'm dosing boron, manganese, and fluoride. And then this MT is basically like Keto Grow. It's a refugium supplement. I'm really hesitant to talk about this though because what people do is they see the tank, they ask what trace elements you're dosing, and now somebody's going to go and think, "Oh, boron. If I add boron to my tank's going to look like his tank." That's not that's not true. Like don't do this. This is just because I'm bored. My tank is running smoothly. I don't have anything else to tinker with. And so I do occasionally send out ICPs and tweak individual elements. I don't think it does anything. I don't think it's necessary, and I'm extremely cautious about it. Again, if you put in the dosing calculators, it probably tells me to add a couple mils of these. I'm adding a drop a day. I mean, I'm because I know I'm fine without it. So I'm sure as hell not trying to cause a problem with it. Worst case scenario, I stop doing it and everything's still fine, right? So that's my shortened spiel on the trace elements, right? I mean, I think it has a place, especially if people are trying to do not a lot of water changes. Um, and I don't know, there might be certain instances where you need it to color up some particularly difficult coral or something. But like I said, I mean, I run green slimers and Cali torts. They don't give a shit about your specific trace element levels, right?
Yeah, I mean, I'll share my take too while we're at it. We've both been doing this for a minute. Um, I feel like I'm not a big fan of an all-in-one or a solution where it's
Yeah.
like multiples in one shot. If you're gonna fudge around with it, here's my advice. Take the time, go and do as much research on what the intended color um what you're looking for from a color standpoint when you're looking at boron, for example, and go and do enough research so you kind of have an idea. And if you do have limitations on that color, for example, then maybe that's the color that you're honing in on, and then maybe put a little bit of boron into the system. And if you see that the colors that are represented in boron, I can't remember. I thought it was reds many years ago, but I could be completely wrong. It could be purples. I can't remember. It's been so long. But I used to go down that rabbit hole and try to find like what color should I expect to see improvement on by dosing, for example, strontium, or by example, potassium, or for example, boron. And then just look into it and then make these subtle adjustments. And like Mike's doing, he's got a 400-gallon system. I don't know what it's calling for, but one drop is so nothing. It's like literally the least amount the dude could put in his system per day at one
Yeah.
drop.
And so if I could put less than a drop in, I probably would,
You
right? But
couldn't. And so unless you diluted it into like water and then ran it on a like, you could do that.
yeah.
But yeah, so I think it's important because that solution probably is one drop every like 25 gallons or some shit, and you're probably only doing one drop on 400. So that's pretty important to take note of. If and I appreciate your disclaimer. Not a lot of people mention these things about, hey, this is what I'm doing, and it does not necessarily equate into what you see when you're looking at my corals on Instagram, or when you're looking at my reef to reef, write up, or whatever the case may be. Don't just assume that you're going to see these colors just because I dose boron or because I dose this. So
Right.
I appreciate you covering that. And there's nothing wrong with these things, guys. No one's saying that a certain type of program that reinforces trace mineral dosing is wrong, bad, ugly, and different.
Yeah, I mean,
Everyone
I think
has
that's
their own way.
fine. Exactly. I also never say, like, I will absolutely share my husbandry methods, my routines, like my recipe, but there are infinite other recipes, right? And you got to find what works for you, right? Like some
Mhm.
people are, more forgiving and expect more from their systems, and some people are better. I'm not good at testing. I'm not good at remembering to perform maintenance. So I need, just something as simple as like, I don't use gyres because I think that they just need to be cleaned a little bit more often than Vortex, and that's why Vortex worked for me because I don't clean my pumps with any regularity, right? I need my Apex to remind me. I need to have float switches on my dosing containers so that my Apex can remind me to refill them. And I also just don't have. You'll notice part of my husbandry is I don't have a lot of like consumable replacement, like repeatable tasks, right? Like I don't run GFO or carbon because those are things that have to be bought and replaced and refilled. I don't like refilling calc and cleaning out the calc reactor, and I don't like dosing coral foods or supplements or feeding the corals. I don't like doing a lot of that stuff, right? I mean, I like to spend my time enjoying the tank or tinkering where I can, but not like, I don't know, not doing the boring shit. We didn't talk about it in the back there, but my water changes too. I mean, I made it super easy to do water changes, right?
Pretty.
I have a barrel back there that's plumbed into the system. And so all I need to do is turn a valve which will isolate that barrel off the system, and then I can drain the barrel, open up another valve, the barrel will refill, and then dump in salt and then open the valve and then it'll come back in. So, I don't do any measuring, I don't do any siphoning, I don't do any lugging buckets when I do a water change. I just open and close valves, right?
So a couple things. First off, that grafted Monty down below is absolutely beautiful pattern on it, man. Like, well done with that
It has
piece.
changed. I made a post, look back, it has changed so much. I didn't even realize how much it's changed in the past couple months. I think it's been in here for about 3 months, but
Mhm.
this piece has changed a ton. It's really interesting to kind of watch how it's changing and what it's doing.
Yeah, that's pretty. And then your red dragon, of course, on that top down, like just really stands out. Like, I mean, is as far as red, you couldn't get a better rendition of red for complementing different, greens, like it is like that bird's nest to the right of it there. Like it just I just love how your textures and your layers and the purple, So on this top down, guys, you're seeing like literally the rainbow. And I know Mike's probably planned it this way. So I wanted to talk about that. But then before, Mike mentioned something on the last video that I want to come back on. And it's like trying to pick a reefer and trying to like stick with that reefer. If you're gonna try to get into this hobby and you're gonna try to don't take bits and pieces from, so be careful. Like, if you're following me, for example, I would say follow me if you're running a small tank, maybe, and pay attention to if you're running a nano tank. And I think, if you're going to be running a 180-gallon display with multiple systems, Mike would be a good person to model your system after. So I think when we're trying to like find our guy that we want to follow, look at what kind of tank they have and try to get within the same range of volume too. That can make things a lot easier so that when you see that the changes that like Mike's making on his reef, that parlays similarly into what you're doing as well. So I think I wanted to just cover that because I know you mentioned it last time about finding someone and kind of trying to stay with them if that's what you're going to do.
Yeah, well, I mean, again, to use the recipe analogy, right? Like, what you don't look at five different recipes and then do five different lines from five different recipes. You're going to end up with a mess, you know? Like, so it only works if you kind of follow the recipe, right? And there are infinite different recipes, but you do have to follow the rest. You can't mix and match them, right? Or you
Mhm.
can if you're experimenting. You have to be willing to accept the fact that your output is going to be shit. It might not turn out right. I mean, the other thing too is to look at the type of tank that people want. There will be people that are like, "Well, I don't do any water changes," and then you look at their tank, and I'm like, respectfully, I don't want my tank to look like your tank, so I'm not going to take that advice. You know what I mean? So you always want to kind of see people's results and make sure, if you aren't interested in acros and you want mushrooms and torches, I don't know that following my recipe is going to be right for you. I don't know that you should not dose trace elements. I don't know, maybe they do better with that stuff, right? I'm just speaking to my experiences, and my recipe, right?
Yeah, I think that's also important too. Like, if you're really gonna theme it out, like where it's gonna be like, okay, so let's go with a mixed reef, like what I have. You have to know that if you have nice looking LPS, that there's gonna be a chance that the acros aren't gonna be top tier acros, or vice versa. If you have top tier looking acros, you might suffer with LPS. So running a mixed reef becomes a little bit more challenging. So the fact that you knew from the day one where you were going to kind of land, it just makes it a little bit easier for you moving forward. If you can fit in LPS softies, and they seem to work into the acro system, oh, that's great. But if you can't, you have to kind of look at it and say, well, I know acros are going to work.
Yeah.
I mean, it's pretty obvious that acros are going to work. So what is that? What is that big ass beautiful staghorn right there?
I don't have a fancy name for it. I just call it the teal with blue tip stag.
Yeah, that's pretty,
That's
man.
what it is.
It's kind of like a lime in the sky, like the one I
Yes,
have.
that's the
Very similar.
closest I've got to it. Yeah.
Yeah,
Um, I
I
mean,
would say
we
it's a
can.
lime in the sky and just say it is. Like that's what mine looks like, but I have a little bit more of a saturated pigment in mine. You can tell. I can tell, like even with the LED, I can see different hues like on corals that fall under LEDs versus T5. Like on multicolor corals specifically.
Yeah,
You get a little bit more out of it underneath the shimmer of a full lit LED. I
that's
don't
my
know
one
why.
torch. I have a love hate relationship with it. That's the only
It's
torch I have.
beautiful. It's
It's
beautiful, but I mean,
stinging everything it can, man. Being a torch, being a
I
menace.
I won't put in a torch into my. I want to really bad, but I already know what's going to happen. It's gonna sting acros because I don't have
Yeah,
enough display. But no,
yeah.
this is beautiful, man. I appreciate the top down love. That stylo is just chunky and thick and fat, and it probably costs you
Well, I
about
mean, not
$15 or $20
too
a
long
month.
ago, it was taking over this whole space over here too. I just wanted to put some new stuff in here, so I basically chopped it in half and kept this half, and then put some new stuff over here. It's a constant. That's just a constant
Yeah, but dude, if you're looking
job.
at a full,
Is
if you're looking out from your room and you're doing top downs, I know right now, but if you were to go like 20 feet away, people just don't realize what the texture, the pasteling purple when it has those white growth tips coming
Yeah.
in, what it really does to complement the entire reef. So, like I know that it might not be the most sought after coral, but if you're really trying to hammer like home what a real beautiful, like variety, very diverse acropora centric or hard stony reef centric reef would look like, it almost needs to be in a tank this big. If you don't, it's almost kind of like the green slimer. It's kind of like, you got to have it in there, man. You
Yeah, I
know.
mean, I've always cared so much more about the tank as a whole, right? Like even back in the Reef Central days, people would be posting up pictures of individual corals, and I'm like, show me a full tank shot. I don't care about anything other than a full tank shot. I want to see what the whole tank looks like, right? And
Hmm.
so, that's something else I always say is like, I don't care about a coral until you can see it from across the room, right? So, like, I don't like boogers. Even when I get these little frags, I try to grow them out in the frag tank back there until they come out here. And then even out here, like, it's gotta, before I care about it, it's gotta have some good size to it, right?
Yeah, I mean, even what is that, a forest fire or is that a bubble gum?
That's a forest fire.
Yeah, that's beautiful, man.
I mean, and
Like,
there is such beauty in this quote unquote low end corals. I hate that term of high end versus low
I
end.
don't think it's low end. Here's the thing, man. It's why are people, one day, and I think we're getting there. People are going to be back to buying corals and wanting to have it display. There's nothing wrong with having frag tanks and growing frags and selling frag. I think it's awesome to do this, but you really are missing out without that coral in your tank. I mean, you when you really look at it from the whole system as a whole perspective, like you were just mentioning, you were just cutting yourself out of just a beautiful specimen. And I can't wait until the day comes back where corals are really valued, not based on like what they look like, but truly based on their desirability of how hard they are to grow, what they look like. I mean, all of these things, like I really love that you have such a beautiful collection of a lot of staple corals, also some old school corals. Um, I mean, right there, that looks like a fox flame on a top down
Yep,
with an
that's a fox
echinata.
flame next to a Hawkins
Yep,
echinata.
yep, yep.
There's let's see, that's a golden granulosa, and then
Whoa.
down
To
below it, I think
the
is
right
a
of it,
pink Cadillac. Yeah, that's a golden granulosa.
God bless, man. Like, okay, so to the audience who's watching, to get a granulosa that big, um, I just can't even begin to tell you how hard that is. Like, to get a smooth coral to become a freaking colony and not have it crash out inside of a year or two is already hard enough. But I know how that's got to be at least 4 or 5 years old.
I'll look back, but I think it's more like three. But I'll
Like,
look back.
well,
Remember,
that's
so
in your
this is where
system
I
because
took
of your growth.
this is where I took the Paletti yellow tip from. Right there's the piece I put back.
Wow.
This is where I took it from. That's a sad pink lemonade. I just moved it there like 2 days ago. It was over here, but it just wasn't getting any light, which you can tell. That's why it's brown. I mean, something that's really cool about these top downs is that you really realize, like, sometimes I'll be up here and you get a much better idea of the competition. Like, you look from the side and it looks like two things are, next to each other or have some space, and then you look on the top and you're like, oh my god, I can't see that one at all. Like, there's a there's an entire Anacropora down there that, like,
Yeah.
it just, and that's
Yeah. You can
part of the
barely
reason I
see
put
it.
these supplement lights in here too, is just like, there's entire corals that are hiding in there that, that's an Oregon tort, BC rainbows in Spain. That's a PC rainbow. This is Master Yoda, Merlin
Beautiful.
staff, and this
Beautiful.
is all still under pretty white lights. I mean, I turned the T5s off, but these Kessels are at like 60 or 70%, which is still super white.
Oh,
Um,
yeah.
that's a Vivid's Rainbow Delight that's eking out underneath there, and a BC Rainbow Stylo. So I got some of the name stuff, mostly just because, I got a little bit of FOMO, but, I don't like the ones that, you have to, are real babies about looking right. I want something that, it's going to look good. You throw it in the tank, it's going to look good as long as you take care of it. Right. Um,
Man, outstanding.
that's a
God.
shortcake, goldenrod. That's the Hawkins. There's I think it's pink Cadillac down there.
Mm-hmm.
Some of these I might move. Like, I don't know. That pink Cadillac doesn't look some. I might I might move it just because I might want to put something nicer in its spot. I don't know. But that's what keeps me busy now, right? Is like just trying to like, keep the look of the tank. You know, the swim throughs. That's that RMF Last Dragon. It's gotten
Wow.
gigantic. I think I need to take like that whole chunk on the right, maybe. I don't know. I hate dealing with that one because you touch it and it just explodes into 1,000 little pieces. It's so fragile. It's basically a red dragon, right? But it's an Aquaport Cardus.
Yeah,
Um,
Cardis. Okay. It's
there's a little
beautiful
home
though.
wrecker down here somewhere, but I mean, under white lights, they just look green. So I don't even know where it is. It's. I guess it's not even getting any light. I don't even know where it is. This
Wow. Look
red
at all
one
that.
is cool. Um, the red
Yeah.
one is
What is that?
TCK
Like
Fire
a
Blossom.
is it a millie?
No,
Beautiful. What is it like? Hyancinthus or
oh,
whatever
you
that is.
got real quiet again. This is what happened last time.
Okay. So I'm gonna hit refresh here.
It's like it stops coming out of my speaker.
Let's see here. Are you there?
Yep.
Okay. It should be refreshing here. Hold on. Let me hit this refresh. All right. Is that any better?
No.
All right. Let's try it again. Have you hit refresh, Mike?
Where's refresh?
See the arrow that like the arrows like in a circle pointing at each other on your screen there. Should be a refresh button. My screen's not coming back now. Let me try it again. Okay, I'm back now. There you go. You're back now. Can you hear
Yeah, but
me?
I can't hear you.
Huh. Let's try this. Let's do you want to drop out and come back and see if that works? And then I'll add you back into the stream. So just
Yeah.
X out and then
Yep.
use the same link and then
You want
come
me to try the
back.
same link?
Yeah, that should work. And then come back and let's see if that does anything.
All right.
Okay, Dom, thanks for being with us. Mike's going to drop out for a second. It does this um, every time we get to the 2 hour mark, and I refresh, and then we just sort of get locked up. But he'll be in a second. He'll chime in. So if you got comments in the meantime, if anyone's still with us, then lay them on down. It's been really cool to go along here with Mike. Let's see, we're gonna add him back in.
There we go.
Yep. Okay, so now we know for the future, do a part 3 or something, or catch up later this year or something, whatever that might be. Okay, so where did we leave off before that glitch? Do you remember?
No.
Yeah, I think we were just talking about like how you were kind of like your bonsai, and like at this point, you kind of probably have a little bit of I don't know if it's on your calendar, but I would imagine you probably have to make space on your calendar for pruning at this point.
Yeah, I mean it's almost once a week, right? I mean, you just got to keep track of. I'm trying to just be good about like not, closing off the space for the fish, keeping the overall look. I've done the thing before where I let the tank get really overgrown. And I mean, it looked cool, but I lost a ton of biodiversity. All the corals in the top half of the tank shaded out all the corals in the bottom half of the tank. That was when I just let it go. That was like 6 years ago when I had my son. I spent like 2 years. The first 2 years, all I did was like throw food in the tank once a day and walk away. And the corals were growing out of the water. I mean, it was insane. But so it looked really cool. The whole tank was full. I mean, it was certainly a unique look, but it's not the same as that like you know manicured perfection.
No, you can tell you're having to regularly trim. I mean, I see your videos too, but yeah, but that's good, man. I mean, especially if you can kind of keep you start having this much, you may want to look into down the road as a calcium reactor if the market doesn't have, if the market doesn't expand from a coral selling standpoint, you always have a way to utilize those skeletons. But
Yeah.
something to think about in the future. But
I'll tell
as
you
long as
what my
well,
one holdup is for a calcium reactor, because I think it's relevant. And I have used, to be clear, I have used a calcium reactor in the past. So this
mhm.
kind of gets back to my, maintenance philosophy. My issue with a calcium reactor is that I have yet to find a way to be preventatively notified when the CO2 tank is running low.
Ah, well,
I
do this.
need
Have
I
you
need a
thought of putting it
text.
on a scale?
Yeah, that's what somebody was saying. But like I need right now I get a text from my Apex that says your dosing containers are low, right? I
Hmm.
want some kind of automated notification in advance, that because here's what's going to happen is I'm going to forget about it and then I'm going to leave town for 10 days and on the second day it's going to run out of CO2 and I'm going to crash the tank. And the only way is you don't know until your AUX starts dropping. I don't want that. I want to find out before that, right? So yes, the closest thing that has been suggested is putting it on a scale. That still relies on me being a little more competent than I want to commit to. Because sometimes life just gets in the way. You know what I mean?
Hmm.
Like the
No, I
inlet,
get it, man.
I
I
don't know
get it.
when I just changed the inlet of the what are they? It's like the air drying beads on the inlet of the ozone. I just changed that, but like I don't know. I probably should have changed that a couple months ago. Like I just changed that when I remembered about it. But you can't do that with CO2 in your calcium reactor. So that's my
And
one hold up. But if you figure that one out for me, let me know.
I think the only way, I mean, like what I would do, but this is just me, is if I would put it like literally out in the middle of my walkway so
So
that I
you would
couldn't get
see
by
it.
it.
Yeah.
I mean, I know that sounds kind of like not what you want to hear, but I mean, for me, that if I I'm really big into calendar events. So like I look at a calendar daily. It's just what I do, old school, and then the digital one on my phone. And then I kind of keep them synced up. But I'm a big fan of writing shit down just because, I'm just from that era. But yeah, I mean, I personally, like if it was me, I would say though, Mike, that you could probably get a digital scale and one that
With an
I would
alarm or
imagine
something.
that could have an integrated way
Yeah,
of.
like I know there's people out there that are experimenting with like Raspberry Pi and like
Mhm.
DIY controllers and stuff. So I bet that
Oh,
there's
there's
some way
it's a
that
way.
someone could. Well, if somebody's listening and wants to do that for me, if somebody wants to send me a scale that I can program an alarm into, and it's gonna, wail like a banshee, and even better, send me a text when the gets low, then I'll buy a calcium reactor.
No, it's yeah, there's just I mean, they are incredible from a regenerative like if I were gonna really go back and like dive deep into acros again like I used to, I probably would do it. But, it's only because like when you have children, like so again, this gets back into like setting up a reef, having a reef that fits your lifestyle, having a reef that fits your family's lifestyle. You mentioned your wife's on board and what when you were in the garage and like preventative things that she does to honor the reef. And it's like, I think that it's like any animal, right? All responsible dog owners will always tell you, before you go and buy this species of dog, for example, do a little background research on them before you just buy the first puppy you see at the store. And I think like the same thing should be applied into reef keeping, like, you know, I've seen I've had known people in this hobby, man. I've had a buddy of mine and his wife was not on board with his hobby. So much to the point that she got jealous of him and bleached his tank on purpose, wiped his whole entire system out. And this was of course like over 10, 12 years ago. And I told him, I was like, man, I would have divorced her, man, me honestly. But
Yeah,
um
that's a deal breaker.
that is a deal breaker with me too. But what I'm saying here is like when we're setting things up in order to get to this stage of where you're at, it didn't happen overnight. Number one, it didn't happen without wife approval if you have one. It didn't happen without you making considerations and trying to get your children involved and making sure, like the playroom on the other side, very nifty for you to be able to look through the tank and still have engagement while you're having engagement with your tank is quite clever. So it's like all these little things matter. And I just, look, man, I give you a lot of kudos, a lot of respect for how well thought out, how well planned out. And I know it didn't necessarily come that way, but you can tell like you really honor the animals, and that's to me the most important thing is you honor the life. So kudos
Yeah,
to you
man. I
for
mean,
that.
and if not the least, just because I don't have the money to replace this shit, man. Like, I mean,
True.
obviously that's not what it's about for sure. I always they didn't ask to be caught and they didn't ask to be brought halfway around the world. And so, that's my responsibility. But at the same time, oh, there's the pellets went off.
Oh
Um,
wow.
yeah, so I feed this tank. I don't remember if we talked about this, but I feed this tank every 2 hours throughout the entire day. I've got an auto feeder up here that feeds pellets 3 times a day. I have an Avast plank that feeds freeze dried food 4 times a day. I just set up the AF4, and then I feed frozen manually 2 or 3 times a day.
Wow.
Um, and right now, my nitrates, actually, I can tell you, let's go see what my nitrates phosphates are.
Are you doing real time monitoring? Wow. 2.7?
With the NP, with the Trident NP.
Wow. So you're at 2.7 right now?
Apparently.
Wow. Having a hard time hearing you for some reason. You there? Are you there? Microphone?
Can you hear me now?
Yeah, I got you now.
Dude, I got too close to this. I'm not gonna say her name because she's gonna start listening, but I got too close to
Oh,
that,
I
and
know
she
what
like
it is.
stole my audio.
Okay,
Oh my
that makes
god,
sense.
so annoying.
That makes sense.
So I'm gonna stay away from her.
Ah,
And then yeah, this is my insight. Yeah, so I've got the Trident NP. Usually my nitrates are around 1 to 3, and my phosphates are around 0.08 to zero point 0.1 ish.
wow, man. That's low for how much food how often, and that's crazy.
Yeah,
That just
and
shows.
just to give people a frame of reference, I didn't set up this tank and start that feeding regime, right? Like, don't fill your tank with like a bunch of dry rock and then feed it 14 times a day the next day that after you set it up, right? I mean, this
No.
is a 10-year-old system. It's the same live rock I've been carrying around since I got into the hobby 20 years ago. I mean, some of these fish I've had. I mean, almost all these fish I've had longer than my kids, but that Regal Angel I got in 2013,
Ah,
I think,
the
and the
angel's
Majestic,
just
the
beautiful,
Majestic's not
man.
long after. Um, I mean, and you can tell these Anthias are basically like groupers at this point. They're huge. Let's see if this
Wow.
works. Alexa, feed the fish. So there's my AF4 right there. It's like a
That's
little
crazy.
chiller. Let's see the urchins camping on the outlet, but
So the AF4 is that a new feeding like for frozen food?
yep, automatic frozen fish food feeder. That's the 4 Fs.
Wow, that is cool. So you're are you one of the first people? I don't know that I didn't even know the technology existed.
Yeah, no, it's been out for I want to say maybe like a year, but it was very like hard to get. When they did their initial drop, they sold out in like under a minute. I picked one up on Black Friday, but it is still new. Yeah, they were on Kickstarter. I feel like I joined their Kickstarter in like 2016, maybe. I got emails from them from Kickstarter for almost 10 years, and you know, I waited. It's been out for maybe a year or so, but I'm only a week in, so I can't give you like full assessment. But I mean, the short of it is, it's the best frozen fish food feeder on the market because it's the only frozen fish food feeder on the market, right? But it can hold a bunch of food in there. You basically put it in there with like a saltwater slurry, and keeps it cold and feeds when I tell it to.
So it's got its own independent like cooling built in.
Yeah,
So
yeah. I mean, it's like a little chiller unit. Like, it's
oh,
blowing hot
okay.
out air, right? It's sucking air in. I'm gonna see. I know that this is probably not good. This is probably too like tight confined. There's not a vent on this space, but it's got a vent here, a vent in the back. I do have a fan up here so that air circulates, but the tank's high up. The tubes are not long enough for me to sit it all the way down here in the cabinet, because
Oh, okay.
this stand is really high. I don't know if we talked about that, but in hindsight, maybe I should have gone lower. But I designed the tank to be at viewing height, when you're standing. But then I put a bunch of acros in it that look best from top down. So lesson learned. But if
I
I did
think
it
you've done
again,
it.
I would make the tank deeper and probably keep the top of it here, but then start the bottom of it down lower if I was doing like a custom setup. But
What it also depends on how tall you are. Like those you know, but those things can help too.
yeah, and I
But
mean, I use this step stool. Like, I can fold this up and put it away in here, and so it helps keep my hands out of the tank, right? Like, it's kind of a pain in the ass to get in here, and like, on one hand, that's not great, but on the other hand, it keeps my hands out of here, right? I think the tank does better if you're not messing with it. And so if I need to reach like down at the bottom over on the other side, I got to go get the A-frame ladder out of the garage and climb up here, right? So I wait until I have a substantial to-do list of stuff that I need to do in the tank before I get my hands wet.
that's pretty cool. That's good to know. And and I agree 100%. It's something that we I think we got into with, I don't know who I interviewed with. It might have been Alan, but about what kind of soap you use before you put your hands in the tank, or if you use
Yeah,
gloves.
I'm super picky about that. Like, I don't I and I've been doing this for like most of my life at this point. So like, I've just developed such a weird aversion to like lotions and like oily. Like, I hate when I can feel that something's on my hand or smell it. My
Hmm.
thing is, if you wash your hands and then you smell your hands and you smell like fragrance, that means that there are molecules coming off of your hands into the air, which means that they're going to go into the water, right? So I use like diluted dish soap because it rinses clean, right? But mostly I just don't use soap. I think soap is probably worse than, like, I wash my hands with a scrub brush, but just water, right? I just do a quick like scrub with a little handheld scrub brush, but not soap, because I think, like, what could be so bad on my hands? Like, soap is worse than probably what's on my hands to begin with. You know what I mean?
I mean,
So
yeah, it's all, I mean, that's something like, I mean, I could give you, I could go into this for hours, but I'll give you the short rundown for what I've studied is, like me, I use Castile soap. I use Dr. Bonner's. I use the beekeeper version before I go into the tank. I don't use antibacterial. I don't use it on my hands. I don't use it. When I go into my tank, normally there's soil underneath my fingernails, and I don't really care.
yeah, I mean, that's organic, right? Like, what do you get? If you
Completely.
got like food on your hands, like, all right, well, I'd rather put food in my tank than soap. You know,
Yeah, and the thing
I'd
of,
rather
if you've
put dirt in
ever,
my tank than soap.
oh, absolutely. If you've ever used Castile, like I would encourage you to try it. Like, even for bathing, if you don't like the feeling of residue of any sort on your skin, it literally will make your skin feel like it's just skin, nothing
Yeah,
else.
yeah,
So that's why I love it, because it's very crisp. Like,
right.
it cuts oil right off your skin. So like, before you go into your tank, you don't have to worry about your skimmer head collapsing or anything like that as a result. So I like that part of it. But I mean,
Yeah.
that's all, like I said, that's a whole different ball game that we could get into. But yeah, I think as a good rule, as a good kind of, if the more you can limit your interference with the ecosystem, probably the better off.
Yeah.
Probably the better off. That is just insane, man. Well done. And this is why, I get to do the little fun experiments that could crash a tank, but then, and you get to benefit, right? If in some
Yeah.
regard, and then I
Yeah, and
get to
I
benefit
stop
by
myself
seeing.
every time, and I'm like, "What is? Hold up! Like, is the risk worth the reward?" And like, very rarely is the answer yes. So,
No, it's
but
not. But what's rewarding for me is being able to step back and be able to see, your reef. And I don't have anything like this to look at this present moment. So it's really, and for me, it's really great to be able to see different reefs and spend time finding out how they're being managed. And like it's fun for me, even though it's not my reef. I get as much fun out of seeing all the reefs that I'm talking to the owners of than just like literally what I'm getting out of mine. I mean, I enjoy my reef, don't get me wrong, but there's just something about being able to see an acro heavy display, like like all you guys. I don't want to mention anybody in fear of leaving anybody out,
yeah,
but
I get it.
there's just so many, but all you guys that I've talked to, just your reefs are incredible. The colors, the contrasting, a lot of things are redundant from one reef to another. All I can say is the one thing that seems trend that I have seen that follows from every single one of these reefs is white lighting being a very big part of it, regardless of tech. White lighting seems to be very much leaned on all of these reefs. So that's something worth noting right there. Might need to refresh there, Mike. Kind of. So anyway, Mark, I see you're out there. I guess you're using the AF4. Very cool. Um, don't know much about it, but I guess I'll be learning through you. And when you're ready to come on board, Mark, let me know.
Yeah, I was going on the Apex. I wanted to like change the color a little bit. I don't know. This is like the super blue. I never run my tank like this.
No, it's pretty, man. Like again, I love looking at a blue tank. I mean, now I'm not a big fan of what blue light does. I'm wearing blue light blockers on my eyes, and
The,
incandescent light right now. But
the
um,
Antheus immediately went nuts. So
yeah, and
I
you can
guess
see some different like patterns from their personality. But yeah, I mean they'll probably adjust here. Oh yeah, I see a little bit of
they normally
yeah,
do a little bit of mating, at the end of the day. But I think that the blues, he's like, oh, it's time.
man,
But
it's
I'm a fish guy too, right? And the
mhm,
fish just look better under full spectrum. Just that bright.
they
I love
do.
that splash of like the orange of the Antheus and the blue of the Chromis and the yellow of the angelfish and like all of that just mixing together and like that all gets washed out under blues, Like yes, a couple of the frags probably look better, but I don't know. I like it.
No, it's
I mean,
well
and
done.
I run bluer light at the end of the day, but like it's just not to the extent. Typically the bluest that I let my tank get at the end of the day is probably around the whitest that most people run their tanks in the middle of the day.
Well, see, the thing is like, Mike, I just switched over my bulbs recently. And, if anybody were to come to my house that's not used to seeing white light and walked in, at first it would be very hard to settle your eyes on what you see. But what the corals adapt. And I think that's the keynote is when you start seeing the amount of color that you have under your full spectrum, that's coral that is colorful. And it's the same thing with like all the other guys I've talked to too, because it's the same common theme. If you want colorful corals, even under blue lights, if anybody's following along and cares to know, you will get much more out of your corals under that blue light if you give them some powerful full spectrum lighting. This is a testament to it. What you're seeing right now is someone who doesn't really have any blue on their tank, and look at the pigments fluorescing. I mean, it's just incredible.
Well, and I like, since you're talking too about pigments and fluorescing, I think that I lean more on pigment based coloration versus fluorescence, right? Fluorescence is finicky. Fluorescence is what requires the correct wavelength and spectrum.
Hmm.
Fluorescence is what can kind of come and go based on how the coral feels that day. And you turn the lights off and the coral's brown. That's because it doesn't have any pigment, right? And so pigments are just so much easier to deal with. If you stock your tank with pigment based corals, this
Hmm.
is an orange coral. If you turn the lights off and shine a flashlight on it, it is still orange, right? Same thing with a blue tort or a green slimer. Like, they have real pigment, right? They also fluoresce, not in 8 different rainbow colors, but I think if you add a little bit of fluorescence on top of the pigment, it can still look amazing.
Well, like if you look behind me right here, you can see that coral. It doesn't have the greatest polyp extension right now, but if you look at it, it's white lit. You can see layers and hues
Uh-huh.
and
Yeah.
subtleties, and those are the little things that you get out of white light. That when it does switch over to the blue, that's when all those little micro colors start to illuminate, and you get a lot of that pop.
Yeah, and
So
not all corals look better under blues. I mean, I think
they
that's
don't.
something to talk about too. I used to have a giant purple table here, and under white lights, it got these fluorescent blue tips. It looked so much better in the middle of the day under T5s than it did at the end of the day. It's a purple coral. You throw blue light on it, it just looks blah, you know?
Mhm.
The pink lemonade, I couldn't figure out. I was like, the polyps are brown. Why can't I get the pink lemonade's polyps to be pink? Because every time I tried to photograph it, I did it at the end of the day, which is when most of the corals look better. But then I finally looked at it top down in the middle of the day, and I was like, wait a minute, there are the pink polyps. They just look pink under whites, you know. So not, there's unfortunately the hobby has skewed in the direction of most of the corals that are available. It's like a chicken or the egg. Most of the corals are available look best under blue light because most people run blue light because most of the corals that are available look best under blue light, right? But I mean, you'll notice I'm just stocked very heavily on the things that don't need blue light to look their best, right? Um,
Yeah.
I mean, and I still run a little bit of blue at the end of the day, but that's the great thing too, is like the way that lights are now, you don't have to choose. Run full spectrum for a couple hours and then run blues for a couple
Mhm.
hours. Like, this isn't 2002. You don't have to
Yeah.
pick a metal halide bulb and you're stuck with it for a year. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah, true.
you can adjust your photo period. I don't think you should be changing your photo period, day to day, week to week, but I think you can find something that you like that works,
I
and that
also
gives the
think
corals what they need.
I think the fish representation under white lights too, like when you're like the way you set your corals up that look good under white light, because they're all represented in the pigment that they are. There's just something that you get when you do have a heavy fish population under that light, and then seeing them dance throughout the coral and
Yeah.
everything else. Like that is a real representation of what a reef looks like. So I just think that, I don't like, I'm not here to knock blue light, like only lighting. I'm just saying maybe you're missing out on like the full experience. Maybe you're not getting the way the fish can illuminate and the way the corals can also illuminate, and maybe some of the other textured hues and subtleties that you can pick up on these corals, as well as those pigments that are presented in the fish themselves. And so, like to me, I'm looking for the reef experience, and I think that when I look at your display, like when I look at like all the guys that I've interviewed display, you're really looking at a reef, a representation of a reef and a reef experience. So, to each his own. It's all in the eye of the beholder. Some people have different strategies, of what they're trying to do with their system, and in which case they might want a blue lit system. In that case, no problem. Like there's no one best way to do
Right.
anything,
Right.
but I do feel that maybe there'll be more information that we can bring forward in the future about perhaps maybe some structural integrity issues with the structure by missing some of those spectral arrays. I don't know that for sure. It's all like kind of anecdotal at this point, but I would definitely say that there is something to behold when you look at your tank under that full lighting and the way you have so many amazingly colored fish that are dancing throughout the reef. It really gives the experience. So that's really nice, man. It's something I think is near and dear to my heart. It's a beautiful leopard wrasse right there too.
Yeah. Yeah, I guess we can do a quick fish roll call. I don't know if we did that last time. Let's see. 3 wrasses. I kind of just looked at them, but there's the leopard, Meleagris leopard. There's the pencil wrasse, which we're lucky. That pencil wrasse normally goes to bed at like 4 or 5 o'clock. I don't know why he's still out. That pencil wrasse is usually out for like 3 to 5 hours a day. It's
Is
kind
it
of
a burrow?
yeah, it's under it goes under the sand for the rest of the day.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know why it's still out, but we're lucky today. And then the coati, um, somewhere around here. Might have to come back to him. Her white with the red. There she is.
Wow. Oh wow. Beautiful.
I've got the 3 angels, right? The majestic,
Hmm.
the regal, which is where there,
Ah,
and the potters.
yep. Ah, that's beautiful potters too.
Tangs, I've got the Achilles,
Hmm.
gem,
Hmm.
and powder blue. I've got 6 chromis, 4 bimaculatus anthias,
Hmm.
a handful of these little guys. I think it's around 5. Those are called
Were they like little
masked.
cardinals or something?
They're called masked gobies.
Okay.
They're from the Caribbean, and you can usually get them for like 15 or 20 bucks. A little group of them is so cool. It just helps kind of like naturalize the tank. And they could go in here and disappear, and you'd never see them again, but they don't. They're out here swimming around. There's 1 or 2 of them live over here too. Um,
Do you remember your last like fish count, like as far as how many total?
It's like 20, low 20s. If you don't count the little gobies. I mean, I think if you count the little gobies, it's like 30, which makes it sound really bad, but I think it's like 20,
I
low
don't think
20s.
that's bad at all. I mean, if you've got the filtration, I mean, you're at 2 point whatever on nitrates. So I don't think your corals are growing at such a clip that they probably would
Yeah.
actually
I've
not
got
have
a
a
little
problem at all. They
trimma
probably
goby over here
appreciate it.
too. I think I have 3 of these red trimmas. Um, see if I can find them, but they live under here. Yep.
Oh, okay, I see them.
I think
All right.
there's at least a pair of them. There were 3. I might be down to 2. I mean, the little gobies only live a couple years anyway, I think.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I just ordered some more of those little masked gobies just because I think they're cool. They're cool little filler fish. And like the chromis, they're like I know they're just like cheap, dumb little fish, but like they're not. They really add, that the school of fish really adds to like the naturalization of the tank. I think, the little filler fish adds to the natural look. Big colonies adds to the natural look. I'm careful about, I don't have ugly equipment all over the place. I've done my best to hide my equipment, on the sides, so that you're really not distracted by equipment. And then, yeah, like big groups of fish really kind of helps give that like natural vibe. You don't go out into the ocean and see like one of these, one of those, one of these, one of those, and one of those, which is how most people stock their tanks.
It's true. Yeah. Yeah. It's absolutely gorgeous, man. The staghorn damsels, man, if you ever can
Yeah.
get them through quarantine, you would really love the way they integrate into the staghorns. It's really something to look at.
Yeah. Yeah, these chromis are breeding too. I don't know if you can see, like, this one's got black on the top, and they
Oh
almost
wow.
always will have eggs over on this wall here. They might be in between clutches now, but they lay eggs on the vortex when they're turned off, and then a couple hours later they turn on, and you can kind of see those might be eggs on the wall there. Those little dots. But
So you got all kinds of micro spawns and all kinds of goodies happening in that
yeah,
system, I
yeah.
bet.
I mean, I've got peppermint shrimp in here, and I assume that they're reproducing, right? If you've got more than one of them, they probably are letting out babies every once in a while. So every once in a while, the nerites in the frag tanks, not the nerites, the trochus spawn. I've got the little micro brittles that come out and spawn every once in a while too. So I think that's a sign of a healthy tank too, right?
I've got so many of them micro stars, man. Like I could literally go into business selling them
Yeah,
things.
yeah. People love them. They're hard to like get out of the tank. Every once in a while I'll like break up an old colony and like throw away some of this old like dead undergrowth, and they love that stuff. And then, I'll post up like somebody come get these, cuz normally you can't really get them out of the tank without ripping them apart, but
Yeah, there's just it is such a good sign though. It's something I'm always happy to see that or limpets or
yeah.
stomatella,
Yeah.
things like this,
I'd love to
are
get some more
always
stomatellas. I bought some recently, which it's so hard. It's like I don't know. I think they were several bucks a piece, right? And I bought like 5 or 10 of them and threw them in, and then I never saw any ever again. I was hoping that they would, kind of start up a population,
They
but
will. They will because like I get them and even this rock that I have in my tank, I get them every once in a while, and it's from my system that the rock wasn't even with me for over a year, and then I got some rock back and started this little tank, and every year I get just a slamming of them, you
yeah.
know. So I'll keep you in mind if I get another spawn. Right now, I've seen limpets showing up, so
Yep, I've got the
you.
little limpets and little. I think I've got limpets and chitons both, but they're both like very small, right?
Mhm.
Like a centimeter.
But those are all good things, man, and
Yeah,
then
yeah.
not talked enough about. You don't see those things on Instagram when you're looking at really nice coral pictures, but those are the little things that happen on the nocturnal side that are indicators. And while we're on the idea of indicators, back in the day, acro guys, I'm sure you are definitely have heard this concept of a canary coral. Do you have a canary coral that sort of speaks to you in the tank and kind of lets you know when things are, maybe needing a little bit more attention or, thresholds are being met or anything like that?
I mean, I like that concept and I want to have a good answer for you, but not really. Not really.
Or are you just in such a perpetual state of like
I mean, I
kinetic
don't want to
growth
say
that
it's certainly not that just like, nah, my tank doesn't have problems. like, but just different stuff can bother different things. I mean, like, I tend to just group things into acros and non-acros in terms of hardiness. But like sometimes, I mean, it'll just be something like sometimes the stylo won't have its polyps out, right? And like that should always be fuzzy. And or like the hammers won't be extended, right? I guess I don't really use PE on my acros as an indicator because I have 3 angelfish. So, I never have great PE on most of my acros. Um, but yeah, I mean, certainly if something like a green slimer or a Cali tort wasn't doing well, that would be cause for concern because they're tough, right? But I don't know. I mean, honestly, the thing with acros is I'm kind of a believer of like by the time you see them looking upset, like you screwed something up 3 weeks ago. So I mean, I really try to not let it get to that point. I try to be in tune with the tank enough that I can catch and rectify any issues before they kind of start looking off. I mean, the biggest problem I have in my tank is just shading. The things just get shaded. I mean, I had a coral over here that pretty much died. I had to frag and remove it just because it was just getting shaded. I mean, it's either getting shaded or getting stung. This is 3 pieces of a red planet, and just the back half of that's dying just because it's shaded. This is a Monte Setosa. It's crawling for its life that way as fast as it can. I mean, it was originally right here, so this has died, and it's just it's growing just as fast as it's dying. So the whole thing is just moving over here.
shifting, yeah.
Yeah. But
That's crazy.
I mean, this
Yeah.
anemone moved and killed something. That menace of a torch is killing something right now, but I just I just can't do anything about it. I don't have anywhere to put stuff, you know.
Gorgeous though, man. Was
But I mean, any coral, if you're in tune with your tank, any coral can be a canary coral, right? I mean, I kind of know which ones are normal to have polyp extension, which ones aren't.
sure.
I know like which ones kind of can handle getting touched and nipped and stung, and which ones can't. Um, you know, I think it's also more about like the ecosystem as a whole, right? Like just balance. If I start to see things get out of balance, if I see diatoms or hair algae or slime algae or vermitids or hydroids or aptasia, it means that something's out of balance, right? I have all of those things in my tank, right? There's an aptasia back there. You know, there's some ugly algae up there. You know, there's a vermitid right there. But you know, you can have a beautiful tank with all of those pests as long as everything's in balance and you know, not getting skewed, right? I mean, yeah, the sand bed looks nice, but it's got a little bit of junk on it, right? But you know, once I start to see pests become pests, I mean, I think that pests can exist at low levels in the tank, you know, and be fine. And they come in boom and bust cycles, and you know, it just speaks to the ecosystem being out of balance if any one of those things are you know, getting out of hand.
Yeah, no doubt. Oh man, what a marvelous job. And um just so everybody's like following along, Mike has a YouTube channel where he's also and make sure and go over to his YouTube channel. And he posts up regularly on frags as he's making them and sort of updating, as well as on Instagram. I think you have a website too, right?
Yeah, well, I have a storefront on Reefables,
Okay.
right? So Reefables is like it's kind of like an Etsy. You know, different sellers can kind of make their own storefronts. So I sell corals through there, and then yeah, most of my social is on Instagram. You know, cross posted to Facebook. I'm not a social guy, right? I exclusively started doing this just in an effort to stay relevant with the hobby and keep up with people and you know,
Mhm.
share my tank. And you know, the forums of old have kind of gone the way of the dinosaur, right? So you know, like it or not, social media is where the community is these days. So um but yeah, I try to post up on Instagram regularly, you know, not try to post some reef porn, you know, and some hot coral shots, but also, you know, some instructional videos or just random thoughts or a little bit about my husbandry or ideas or, you know, maintenance routines and things like that too. So, and some of it makes its way to YouTube, but yeah.
Yeah, so he's got a hell of a following on Instagram. I'm not on Facebook, so I don't know what's going on over there. But Mike's got a really, really great, huge following on Instagram. A lot of people are really loving what Mike's doing. I'm not really spending much time on Reef to Reef these days, but he has a very beautiful write up over there on his Reef of the Month, and he had some accolades on achieving a really wonderful status and an honor in the hobby. So, again, kudos to that on the past. Lobster of Justice, I believe, over there.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, and like just one more point on his coral frags. Like some of the other vendors out there and the guys I've talked to, whether it be Alan or Rich and Lee. Those guys all particularly do sell corals here and there too. But they a lot of people also recommend battle corals. I do as well. And the reason why, guys, is like the amount of coral mass that you get with the old school type frags. Mike's not offering boogers. Those are corals that he's got are in some cases 3 to 4 times the size of what you would see on main vendor sites that are selling these smaller corals. So if you really are looking to get your tank going, a lot of real good corals that grow really fast. You can seed your tank, guys. If you're starting off new, you can seed your tank with, your stylos, and if you don't keep them long term, that's fine. But it's a really good way to get your biome going. A real good way to get
Yeah.
the
Don't fill
balance
up your
and.
tank with a bunch of $100 boogers. Get a milk a
Mhm.
stylo, a green digi, a forest fire digi, a blue tort, a green slimer. That from me, that's going to cost you less than $100. And then fill up your tank, and then at least you got something to look at while those stupid little rainbow boogers are encrusting down and doing nothing, right? And
Mhm.
then yeah, transition over time. I mean, that's what I've done. I do have some named pieces in here, but I started this all out with just random chunks. I would go to the LFS and be like, what's the biggest chunk I can get for the least amount of money? And like it'll color up. Like some of this stuff, this one's awesome. You see it better from the top, but like I just picked that up as a random brownout. It's like lavender with like a little bit of fluorescence in the
It
tips.
reminds me of the an old ORA piece called the Ice Tort. It
Okay.
kind of has like an old ice tort look, and I don't know
Yeah.
if it's a tort or not, but it kind of
I mean,
has
this
that
is a
look to it.
creamsicle, right? But I didn't know what the hell this was. It was green for the first 18 months I had it. And then it just turned like, and I was like, oh yeah, that's just absolutely a creamsicle, right? But like, I didn't know. Get these Monties growing. I mean, it's good looking stuff, right? And and
Yeah.
it's not going to die on you and charge, $100 a frag. So yeah.
Well, and if you're looking for that displayed look, the contours, the shapes, breaking up the patterns. I mean, I love tenuous. There's nothing wrong with tenuous, but some tanks I see out there on IG are just so tenuous
Boom,
heavy
boom, boom,
that
boom.
that it
Yeah.
doesn't have see the way the stag, and then underneath it you got a stylo underneath that, and then you got tables, and
Yeah.
it's just like so many different patterns
I
and
love
shapes.
the
And
elkhorn. Like nobody loves this coral
oh,
because
I love Elkhorn too,
it's just
bro.
like khaki. I mean, it gets like kind of bluish greenish if you hit it with the right light. But I mean, we're being if we say that this is a nice color, we're being generous, right? But it's got such a cool growth form. It's like this craggy, asymmetrical, and just like you're saying, it breaks up that like look of like fruit stand, little acro
Mhm.
bushes, right? Um, so yeah, I love the
Well, even
variety
though
of
it's
shapes
tan,
and growth forms and
I was going to say, even though it's tan, it's still see the way it complements and offsets on that forest fire. I mean, so
right.
again, you get it doesn't look tan when you're looking at it in the same frame as the digi. So a lot of these things are just old school techniques on just placement and just knowing what a coral is going to look like, what it's possibly going to do. And then, like what Mike does too, he mentioned earlier, in case you guys didn't check it out, he's not opposed to moving corals around to find a good contrasting spot where he's going to get a good color break or a good pattern break or
Yeah.
one of these things that happens to break up the symmetry or whatnot. If you want to expand, Mike.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I moved things around. Originally, I had the pink lemonade right here. It grew up and then plated over. And so I was looking at the bottom of it, and it kind of looked weird having like this just line of corals. And so I chopped the bottom off and put it down here. It was down there for a couple months, but it's just not getting light and it was browning out. So now I moved it back there. This last dragon was originally grown out over around that corner. This guy was originally over here and then got too big, and I moved it into that corner, and it got too big, and I moved it over here. So, yeah, I mean, you don't always know how a coral is going to grow out and look. Sometimes you put a coral here and you think it's going to go like this, and it goes up and then does this, and you're like, oh, well, I
Yeah.
wanted a coral here, so I put it here, but I didn't want a coral here, right? Um, so yeah, you move them around to get different colors, different textures. I mean, one thing I do is I just try to, go through the color wheel in my head of like, all right, well, I've got blue here. So, I want to surround it with, uh, a yellow and a red and a green, right? And so you just kind of go through and try to, have a nice little color wheel around and have things, opposite popping next to each other. I mean, you can't always do that, right? And but to an extent.
Well, you definitely are going to have a little bit more of a challenging time if you're not using primary pigmented colors and using white light. So those are some advantages of the choosing that full spectrum and what that can offer. And not to say that you can't have that same breakup and symmetry breakup under blue, but again, I love what the that full spectrum brings when you have those primary base colors offsetting and you stand away, you really get that same palette, that same rainbow
Yeah.
effect, box of Crayolas, if you will. Beautifully done. Well, other than that, any other philosophies, anything that you didn't under the hood that you didn't cover that you can remember?
No, I mean, I think we've gone through a lot of that, I know my system isn't simple, but I still think my husbandry is, right? I put a lot of effort into quality equipment that's not going to fail, but I also try to think what's going to happen if this equipment does fail. I want to know about it and I want to be able to fix it. So I have a lot of redundancy, a lot of fail safes from dosing, auto top off, flow, power outages, electrical, all that kind of stuff, right? I try to automate stuff just to save me from myself. I know that some people don't like stuff that's automated. That's fine, but I'm gonna forget to fill up my dosing containers. I'm gonna forget to, you know, do whatever. And so for me, that's what works best. And I don't overcomplicate the filtration or the husbandry or the maintenance, right? I mean, to me, if you give them good light, give them good flow, supplement calcium and alkalinity, and then just stand back and get the hell out of the way. And, don't crash the tank for 2 years. You're going to have a good tank, it's
Yeah.
it's
And
just
then,
hard for people to do that. I mean, I've
well,
changed
and
my T5 bulbs every 2 years. I'm running lights that are almost 10 years old that came out. I don't know, probably 15 years ago. So, you don't need the newest light. You don't need the newest supplement or additive. Bought my skimmer used in 2009. So I've been building this system for 20 years. When I got in the hobby 20 years ago, that's the first and last time I set up a tank from scratch. I mean, I've had a lot of different tanks and systems over the years in different cities and states, but it's always been an upgrade, a move, a downsize, it's been the same. I mean, this rock has been wet in my tank for since I was in high school. So,
so there's a challenge for any acro seeking aquarium keepers. If you're starting off, why don't you buy a T5 fixture, an old T5 fixture to start off, and put some bulbs in it. And by the time you're ready to do your first bulb change at 2 years, like Mike, then it's time to start adding acros. And if you're still in the hobby, by the time you go to change those bulbs on that T5, well,
yeah.
you deserve to go ahead and buy a bunch of acros at that point, and you probably are going to be highly successful.
Yeah, man.
No, and I know that sounds silly, but literally, I there's a lot of love and appreciation for what you just said of 20 years in the making of this. This isn't something that just happened
Yeah, I
yesterday.
mean, as much as I don't want to be discouraging, but like I didn't get into the hobby 3 years ago and set this tank up 2 years ago, right? I mean, not that it took me. I mean, if I had uh, you know, part of that was because I was in high school and college and I didn't have any money, right? I could have, if I had grown up money 20 years ago, I could have gotten here quicker, right? I mean, when I was in college, I was focused on other things, obviously. Junior year, I sold all my coral and I had a 180-gallon tank, but I sold all my coral because it was just too much and I just kept fish. And that was like a breath of fresh air to be able to just like not have the stress of coral for 2 years while, my last 2 years in college. And then when you graduate, you're like 6 months from now, I don't know if I'm gonna have a job. I don't know what state I'm gonna live in. I don't know,
Mhm.
that sort of uncertainty is just not good for a reef tank, right? So, but yeah, once I like, this is my second house. Once I settled down here, I was like, all right, I'm going all in. And that's when I really kind of, you know, tried for the tank that I'd been half-ass trying for 15 years probably at that point. And then I kind of went all in on it. Yeah.
Well, I've got my stepson still here. He's got a girlfriend that they're getting pretty serious. So I may just be by myself in my whole house. So I might have to find a reason to get a big, forever tank. But
Yeah.
at this point I've got a tank in waiting, and I'm very thrilled and very honored to just spend time with you as well as other reefers and get to see their systems. And it's very gratifying and satisfying for me right now where I'm at. And I want to, like, for me, I want to be able to say that I grew a nano system that was what I'm doing right now. Like, literally, like, for me to be able to do this in a nano, like, that is
It's hard,
like,
man. Yeah. I was just rewatching, I guess maybe it was your live with Troy where, he was like, man, the people that do this in nanos, like, more respect to them, right? And I'll say that, yeah. I mean, I love a 400-gallon volume. Like, if I take water out because I'm shipping corals, like, I can just dump 5 gallons of fresh water in, right? Like, it's fine. Don't do that in your tank, right? It's more water volumes, more forgiving. I think that's part of the reason people struggle nowadays is big tanks. It used to be normal for your first tank to be a 75-gallon with a 20-gallon sump. Nowadays, people get in with these smaller tanks, and it's hard, right? And then, super props to the true mixed reef guys too, because in an acro tank, you can just put a shit ton of light and a shit ton of flow in there, and like everyone's happy, right? But like if I had to figure out like a comfy spot for A cans and a comfy spot for torches and a comfy spot for Gani's, I mean, like I have a torch, I have a Gani. I throw them in there, and I was like, if they live, they live, right? I'm not like whatever happens, happens. But yeah, the people that are like dropping money on Gani's and expect them to live and need to find a good spot for them, but you've also got acros in the tank. That's tough, man. So on one
well,
hand, I mean, acros are tough, but on one hand, it's easier to just crank up the flow and crank up the light, and then everybody, you don't have to worry about it, right?
that's funny because the reason why I never really so I've always been an acro guy, and now I have a lot. I'm probably balanced between the two now. I'm probably just as heavy on LPS as I am on acros, but the T5s, man. I always felt like I can't grow those corals under T5, so I stayed away from them forever, thinking that LPS probably would look so much better. They always looked better to me under LED. I thought that
Yeah,
the way they popped under LED just looked
yeah,
so much healthier. But I was very, very, very surprised. And if you go into my IG account and you look at some of these A cans I'm posting, they look like they're on another planet, man. Like they're just absolutely fluffy. Never The polyps are out constantly. Like,
yeah. I mean,
it's
and
just,
what's wild? The I'm not an LPS expert, right? I have a few LPS
I
corals.
don't know
I've
nothing
kept them
about
in the
them.
past, but I'm not an expert. But my torch and my hammers, they're fully extended during the day when the T5s are on and when the lights are white. And at the end of the day, when the T5s go off and the lights are and the LEDs are blue, they're like half drawn in and like look kind of shitty. And I'm like, how are people running these LPS tanks under just blue LEDs? Because mine look shitty under blue LED. You know what I mean? They look all pissed off. They're half closed up and they're like,
Think they're cranking the par, dude. I think what they're doing is they're pushing,
yeah, maybe.
that par. But that's what they're doing. I know that's what they're doing. But and power to them, dude. Like again, I've the tank these A cans came out of was someone who will never put anything other than a Radion over their tank, and he used to be a store owner. His whole entire store had nothing but Radians everywhere, and I guarantee if he came over and saw his A cans and this T5 setup right now, he would be like, what the fuck is going on? Like,
Yeah.
I guarantee he'd be like, wait a minute, like,
Yeah.
because seriously, they're so puffy. Like, they don't even look like normal. But I don't know. Maybe I'm just lucky. I don't know. I got the flow set up right. It's a
Yeah.
shallow tank. I got this wave rocking just right. I got the right amount of I put the acros in just the right spot on the
Sometimes
middle
stuff just
part of the
clicks,
reef,
man. Yeah.
and it's happy right now, and I'm just gonna let it do its thing. And yeah, I mean, like you, I don't have Nothing. I mean, I have nothing on my tank. Like I have a protein skimmer and that's it, nothing
Yeah.
else. And
Yeah.
so you can do it so many different ways. And thank you for walking not only me but all the people that are sub to the channel here through your elaborate but simplistic system. So
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
like that. I mean, it's very elaborate, it's very well thought out, but it's also very simple. And
Yeah.
that's beautiful,
And
like how you're
it's
able to
been
do that.
it's been built over 20 years, like don't think that that's what your garage has to look like on year 2, cuz that's not what the tank looked like on year 2, right? I mean, I got ozone because I just wanted to. I've been thinking about it for 15 years and I finally decided to just get an ozone generator, but I don't need it. The tank was fine without it, right? And a lot of that other stuff is just from like, every time I have an issue with the tank, I have his policy of like put something in place so that that never happens again. And so I've just ended up with a lot of, fail safes over the last 20 years, that'll all kind of protect me from, issues that I had in the past. And, I'm not to say that there's the universe finds new issues to throw at you, right? But,
Mhm.
it's been built over time and it's, a lot of it are nice to haves, right? Not need to haves. A lot of it are redundancies that save you from that one bad day out of 1,000 days, right? I mean, a thousand good days can be undone by one bad day, and that's just the way this hobby is, right? You can do everything right for 3 years in a row, and then you make one mistake or one thing goes wrong, and literally nothing, none of that other shit matters, right? You're so worried about the small things about what's my strontium level, or should I run my reds at 5% or 3%? Meanwhile, some major shit happens, and guess what? None of that matters. If your tank crashes, none of that mattered, right? So I just focus on the big picture things, right?
Check out his acros on reefables. Okay, cool. So yeah, if there's anything else other than that, man, I'm very, as usual, very, very blessed and very gracious for your time,
Yeah,
uh,
absolutely.
taken away from your family time. No, seriously, I just want to make sure and mention it because it is a lot. And you're here and you're sharing some of your secrets, some of your secret sauce, your philosophy, the redundancy, all of the things. I have such a very good picture of your reef now, and I really appreciate you walking me as well as the audience step by step through it. So very much appreciated, sir.
Yep, sure thing. Good
All
good
right,
talk. I
brother.
was looking
Well,
forward to it.
we'll see you on IG.
Yep,
And everybody that comes in, like I try to make sure everybody understands this. Like this is always going to be, like, hopefully, like Mike's always going to be coming through regularly,
yep.
Alan regularly, Rich, any of them. Like it's always an open invitation. Next week we're going to have Joe JBNY, and
Nice.
that should be fun. So
He was
yeah, thank
already
you.
old school when I got in the hobby, and I'm old school,
I
so
Bro,
and
it
as a
is such an honor,
he
man. It
doesn't
is
know who
such
I
an
am, but I know
honor.
who he is. So yeah.
But you know what, man? I'm stoked to have met you. I know our paths probably crossed many times in the past that we didn't even weren't even aware of. We've been in the hobby pretty much around the same exact time, and yeah, dude, it's so great to connect. Thank you for your time,
Yeah.
and
Thanks for
I'll
having
see
me.
you out there, and we'll see you again for a catch up in a couple of months, and you can show me what's new.
Yep. Sounds good. Thanks,
All right,
buddy.
brother. Take care, man. Thanks
See
again.
ya.